One dark night near a luxurious castle, thunder loudly roared. A man in a raincoat was struggling with some girl. He constantly thought that it was very strange because the girl's sword had not broken yet, and he tensed up, believing that it was his strongest strike. After that, he jumped back and returned to the girl. She was the Demon King. He said that although it was already late, he wanted to ask something. The girl replied that she did not mind because she also had questions. They asked who made their swords because they were similar. They fell silent, after which the Demon King asked if it was a sign from that strange blacksmith. The guy replied that he thought it was that old man, and told her that now he understood the situation, and they were equal because their swords were equally effective. She sighed and said that continuing to fight was pointless. The Demon King declared that in that case, he swore that at least their generation would not fight among themselves. He asked her if she would mind if he told that blacksmith about it. The girl did not mind. After all, if he was dissatisfied with them, it would primarily restrain the war. The girl sighed, thinking that the guy probably expected this to happen. He confirmed it and said goodbye to her. They parted, believing that the blacksmith had deceived them both. At that time, the man was diligently working in the forge when suddenly someone approached him and said that the work was finished. He asked the owner for permission to come later and inspect everything. The owner agreed, and the man continued working. Suddenly, he turned to the girls and said that it was probably time for them to go to dinner. The girls smiled. Two girls were chatting sweetly, and he watched this with a smile. Suddenly, he raised his eyes to the sky and thought that a lot of time had passed since he started living in this world. On the day of his death, he threw himself under a truck to save a little kitten, but did not manage to get out. He jumped on it only because he loved cats. He was drifting into oblivion when suddenly someone asked if he was conscious. Someone said that at least his soul was not harmed. The man asked what was happening, and someone replied that if you talk about it, he died in that world. He understood everything, but did not know why he felt so cold. Usually, when a being dies, its soul decomposes and turns into new resources. But for now, the stranger was restraining this process. He had to strain his mind not to break from overload. He asked if that man managed to save the cat before he died, and the puzzled man agreed. The girl smiled and said that it was her. The man was surprised. She said she watches over worlds. She travels through parallel worlds and checks if there is anything in them that could harm other worlds. She observed their world in the form of a cat. She made a small mistake and almost died, but the man saved her. He pondered and said that if she was so almighty, how could she die from a truck collision? And the girl explained that only her temporary body would die, and everything else would live as an ordinary cat. And her soul would continue to exist, and the man would not have to die in that world, and a hole appeared. To compensate for his death, the girl was going to create a new being. The man said he did not quite understand how all this worked, but thought it would be better to simply save him from that accident. The girl said that would be the easiest way to fix everything, but the problem was that she had already seen his death. What she sees is transmitted and stored in the world. She apologized and said that his death was already recorded in the world. The man did not believe it and asked what he should do now. The girl said she had not yet recorded it in other worlds and therefore would like to transfer it to another world. He understood that she wanted to create a substitute for existence. The girl smiled and noted that he understood everything well. He became cautious and asked why she was doing all this. The girl only said that he died because of her carelessness. She felt strange. The man sighed and said he understood everything. She added that as a token of gratitude, she would like to give him a certain advantage in the new world. He asked her what she meant. The girl said she would give him the knowledge and skills necessary for life in this world and a place where he could live. She asked him what kind of life he wanted to live. The man thought for a moment. He was lonely and had no family. He worked as a programmer in a black company. When he came to, it turned out that he was already old and had gray hair all over his body. The only person who would care about his death was the boss, but they would simply find a replacement anyway. In that world, he would lack nothing, and no one would be bored with him. He thought about another chance in life. He said he was passionate about creating things and would like to earn money from it. The girl said she could make that happen. He also added that he loved cats so much that he was ready to sacrifice himself for them and just wanted to live quietly with his cat. The girl asked what exactly he wanted to create. He said he had always been interested in blacksmithing, but never had the opportunity to try it. She agreed and said that at first she would focus on physical characteristics and invest the rest of the resources in language, production, and a little in magic. She created a bright flash. The man closed his eyes and the girl smiled and thanked him. He reached out his hand to her, but everything began to disappear. The next moment, like a drop of water or a ray of light, everything vanished, and he found himself in a forest. The man opened his eyes and saw that he was lying on the grass in the forest, got up, and felt a sharp pain. His head hurt terribly. Suddenly he felt something strange. From his head to the tips of his fingers, so much information passed through him that he had not known before. He felt everything both in his head and in his body. Then he understood why his head hurt. The life he had led was over. The man gasped for breath. He lowered his hands from his head and said it became easier, straightened his arms and looked at himself, felt strange, as if new knowledge and experience had passed through him, turned around and was not sure it was his house, and suddenly was surprised. He stood near the neat wooden house. He entered, remembering what the girl said about the accommodation. He looked inside. The house had furniture, a simple room, and a kitchen with various products. He realized that everything necessary for life was there, and for the first time it was enough for him. He noted that the house has no electricity, plumbing, or signs of a well, so you will have to look for a water source. He also mentioned that there is another room. He quickly looked inside and was very surprised. This was his workshop, which had all the necessary materials and tools. He picked up the hammer and his eyes sparkled. He understood how to use them and what to do with them. It was all in his head. He thanked the girl for this knowledge. This is called priority mode. When his stomach suddenly growled, he decided to add some magic. It was already noon, so he decided to prepare lunch. After eating, he wanted to explore the surroundings and find a water source. In the kitchen, he had dried meat and root vegetables. He was a bachelor and knew how to cook simple food. The food needed to be cut and fried. He looked at his hand and summoned fire. The man was surprised that he succeeded. The fire was so small that it could not be used for long or heated to high temperatures, but it would come in handy as a lighter. The dinner was bland, not tasty, but not terrible either. The man got ready, hoping to find a water source, took tools, and gathered hair. When he went outside, he looked around and began leaving marks on the trees, when suddenly he saw a green squirrel and realized that this was truly another world. He wondered what the forest was like there and how big it was. He did not know if there were cities or villages nearby. He also did not know what materials they were made of. The farmers had made significant efforts. The man did not know that this knowledge was the same as all his other abilities. Suddenly he sighed. He saw some herbs and assumed they were medicinal. He thought that this meant it was part of the knowledge he had acquired. It was still strange to know something he actually did not know. He just took a little. His mind and body gradually got used to the world. He went out into the open space and was very surprised. There was a lake. It was about a 15-minute walk from the house. It would be good exercise. The water was fresh. He saw himself and noticed that it made him younger as he wanted. His body became lighter. He was about 30 years old. There were still fish, so he had food. He looked around and tried to understand what the sound was and looked to see if something was lying there. He hoped it was not a bear or something similar. The man approached and saw a girl lying unconscious. He touched her and asked if she was okay. Suddenly he turned pale, noticed that she had ears and a tail. She looked like a tigress, and he could not understand who she was. He also realized that she would not survive if he did not carry her immediately. He picked up the girl on his shoulders and went. The girl held her breath from pain. The man said he knew it was hard for her, but she had to hold on. He added that it was much easier than it seemed and placed her near the entrance to the house. He quickly found sewing supplies. Only the fabric remained to be found. He tore the cloth into strips to make bandages. Then he would have to sterilize the needle in boiling water. He picked up the girl and apologized. He took off her clothes to examine the wounds. As he thought, the worst wound was on his abdomen. Thanks to the priority mode, he knew exactly what to do. Suddenly he gasped sharply because the water was hot. He had to sew the wound with a sterilized needle and thread. The man began to sew, and the girl clenched her teeth in pain. He apologized and said it would be over soon. He bandaged her and fed her soup. He noticed that her condition stabilized and was able to provide first aid, although he was a beginner. If a scar remains, he can only apologize. He sighed and thought that he was glad because the previously collected herbia worked well for disinfection and pain relief. Suddenly, the girl's ears twitched. He sighed and felt tired. Now he would have to live in this world. He needed to prepare for the life of a blacksmith. There were still many tasks ahead. Since this was his second chance, he wanted to get everything necessary and live in comfort, not be a workaholic. He thought to start working tomorrow, but for now he needed to check on the girls from time to time, because it would be bad if he fell asleep. After some time he fell asleep sitting by the girl's bed. Time passed, and he was awakened by a loud scream. The girl lifted his head with her paw. Covered with a blanket, she kept the man at a distance. This was the beginning of his new life. He looked at her hands with fear and realized that she was not gripping the handle, so she was not trying to kill him. He looked at her belly and realized he needed to ask about it now. He asked if her wound was okay. The girl was surprised but said nothing. After that, she said it still hurts but seems to be healing. The man said he felt great relief. She looked at him and asked if he had seen her. He explained that he had to do so to properly treat the wound and assured that he did not touch anywhere else. She asked if it was true, and he swore on his life. She said nothing, then withdrew her hand. She said that she would trust him for now. He stood up and thanked her. The girl said that he hardly had any smell. The man asked what that meant. She said that the heart beats faster. He sighed, glad that she was not embarrassed. He threw her clothes and told her to dress. The man said that her old things were heavily stained with blood, so he had to tear them to help. She understood him. The man apologized and said that he did not know that these things were important to her. The girl said that it was not so and that these were just old rags, after which she quickly dressed. The girl asked if this was really his house. The man confirmed. She thought the house was not bad. The girl asked what he was doing here. He said that this was a smithy. Then he added that he wished he could say so, but in fact he settled here only yesterday. She thought that he did not seem like a liar, but it was strange. She did not remember at all that she had a house in this forest. The man said that it was here when he came yesterday. She said that she rarely visits this part of the Black Forest and maybe just missed it. Black Forest. She knew something about him. This place is located east of the forest. Usually she went north or west, but yesterday, when she stopped to rest, she ran into a big bear, and then the man already knows. She is sure that if the man had not found her, the bear would have torn her to pieces. He did not know that it was so dangerous. He was lucky that he was not attacked yesterday. He thought about it and clarified that the girls would need some time for the wounds to heal. She thought and said that usually beastfolk have much stronger bodies than humans, but with such an injury, she would not be able to hunt and wander the forest for about 2 weeks. The man asked if in that case she would like to spend some time with him. She was surprised. He explained that he had just moved here and needed an assistant to help with household chores and blacksmith work. In turn, he would provide her with housing and food until she recovered, and that was not bad. The girl was impressed. She thought for a moment and therefore did not know what to answer. Seeing this, the man became nervous and was touched by the fact that her story faltered. The girl said that as long as there was no suspicious smell here, she would live here until the injury healed and she could move normally, and then she would think about it. He said she should not worry now. She smiled and said that she would temporarily be under his care. The man smiled. Suddenly he remembered this and asked what her name was. She quietly replied that her name was Samia. The man said that it was a very cool name, but the girl said she did not like it and would like to have a cooler name. He asked if she wanted a name like Gonzalez. Then Samia laughed and asked what kind of name that was. He was embarrassed by her laughter and blushed. He said that anyway her family gave her that name, and it suited her. Suddenly the girl blushed and thanked him. Then she asked the man's name. He said his name was Azo Tanuya. At least that was what he was called. She was surprised by the northern name and the fact that he had a surname. In this world, it seemed that Asians like him lived in the north. The girl apologized. Samia said she did not want to offend him. She just rarely saw surnames in these parts. He said there was no need to worry. Men with surnames usually have a certain status and live in a manner, so it is very strange that Ivy Jozo has such a forge. He thought everything would be fine if she took it calmly. Sammy thought it was hard for him. The man also said it would be good if she called him by his name. Simia quickly agreed, for which he thanked her. He threw coal into the furnace and said that would be enough for preparation. ISO decided to start with a small knife. At first, he kindled the fire in the furnace using magic. Then he needed to maintain the temperature until the coal caught fire. Next, wind magic. Wind magic feeds the fire with oxygen, like bellows. Since the fire was not too strong, it would manage on its own. However, it was much hotter there than when Etzo went to bed. As soon as the temperature reached 800 degrees, the color of the steel would change, and he could start forging. He knew what to do, although he was doing it for the first time. Thanks to priority mode, the device showed at a glance when the technique would be ready. Instantly, he noticed the time had come. He raised the hammer. After that, he quickly struck the object. Iso could not believe he did it himself. He hit so hard that it seemed strange. Yesterday, when he was carrying Samia home, and earlier, when carrying water, even at 30 years old, he was not this strong. He had clearly become stronger. Then he had to polish the blade with a file and finally sharpen it on a whetstone. He did it very skillfully. Step by step, he used the knowledge and skills given to him and turned them into his own experience. His body was becoming the body of a master, and this was reflected on the edge of the blade. He held a neat knife of his own making. It was his first creation, and Anzo did not know what to cut with it. He took out root vegetables to cut them. He applied force and cut the board on which the root vegetables lay. He did not understand what he had done or why it looked like a strange joke. There was no such sharp knife in the house. He assumed it was due to special treatment. He needed a knife that would cut as if by magic. It was dangerous. Aizo decided that he could use the knife to protect himself. He quickly crafted a handle and thought he should show it to Samian. He believed that if he used preferential regime skills, the knives would cut too well, and he would not be able to sell such a dangerous knife on the market. He wanted to make 3 more types of knives tomorrow, one sharper than this, another less sharp, and the last only slightly sharp. He wanted to show it to Samia first, and then decide what to do with it. He woke the girl because dinner was ready. She did not want to get up at all. Samia said that no matter how much she slept, it was never enough. Ezo asked how she felt. To restore her blood level, she needed to move a lot. She pondered. Samia looked at the lamp and asked if it was magical. She also did not believe that he could use magic. Iso said it was just an ordinary lamp. Samia admired people with that surname. The man said that sleep was important, but nutrition was equally important. For lunch there was fried meat and vegetables. Iso rarely cooks, so this was the best he could prepare. The girl talked a lot during the meal. In this world, Iso still needs money for groceries, firewood, and kitchen utensils, and Iso advised Samia not to be shy about choosing a bed. The next day he noticed that the knives were already ready. Izo called Samia to help him. The girl went out but said she knew little about blacksmithing. He said she needed to test these knives. He handed her one and said to start with it. The girl said that if that was all, then there was no problem. They started with the easiest. She pressed and quickly cut the root vegetable. The girl was surprised. She said excitedly that the knife was simply incredible, and Izo was truly a master. He thanked her and asked her to try the next one. She picked up the new knife and pressed it. He was cutting the root vegetable even faster. Iso noticed that it was easier to cut that way. The girl was very surprised. Sam asked what this thing was because the knife cuts very well and asked her to try it. This is the main part of the set. She took the knife and pressed it to the root vegetable. With a light tap, she also cut through the board under the root vegetable. She was amazed. The man told her to try to pull it out. She carefully lifted the board. The girl asked in panic what it was, and Ezo calmed her down and said that holding a knife like that was dangerous. She agreed and apologized. He said it was all right and that he hadn't warned earlier. Her reaction confirmed everything. The priority mode he received gives him the power of a first-class blacksmith, but if he wants to sell them, he needs to think about how to use them. Samia asked if she could buy it because it would be great for hunting. The man said she could take it if she wanted. She was surprised. She asked excitedly if it was true. She thanked Izo. The man thought it looked very nice. He said he would make her vaginas, but it would take time. She agreed. The girl ran to sleep and he decided what to do next. Lowering the level, he will be able to make more knives, and judging by Samia's reaction, this is a very good level for sales. At first, he wanted to make more knives and agricultural tools, then sell them and earn a living. He heard that beyond the forest, there is a small town with a lively market on weekends. Now his blacksmith business started working. The man said he was finished. Samia thanked him, and Iso asked how she was feeling. The girl replied that she still couldn't go hunting but was moving normally, and after these words he suggested she go to the city tomorrow. A week has passed since that conversation. During this time, Izo made a couple of knives, hoes, and sickles to sell in the city. Their rank is a basic model. Samia recovers well, and they sometimes go out together. During walks, Ezel learns about the area and its ecology. They saw many plants and animals. Iso was pleased that his new knowledge immediately came in handy. He was worried that wild wolves and boars might appear on the way, but Samia said that everything would be fine because she could sense by the smell that Izo was strong. The man believed that Samia was stronger than him. He thought that he had not yet fully realized his strength. He assumed that he was strong enough to survive in this forest. They walked through the forest for 2 hours until they reached the main road, and from there it was another hour to the city. Since Samia is a beast person, they did not encounter any animals or bandits along the way. The journey passed peacefully. The girl pointed to the city. Izo smiled. Behind this wall was a flea market. In this city, the market is located outside the outer walls, and merchants come there daily. Since the city mainly lives by trade, no fee is charged for entry and exit. Suddenly the guard turned to the boys and asked if he could take the question, and Iso, with a seller's smile, inquired which one exactly. The guard said that he had not seen these guys before and wanted to find out what their purpose was. Iso said that he was a blacksmith. He came to sell his things at the flea market. The guard asked to inspect them, and Iso agreed. The guard was confused. He said that everything is fine and the guys can pass. He also asked them not to cause any problems. To get into the flea market, you need to pay 1 silver coin. He got a trading stall and a wooden sign with a permit to trade. The place is taken by the one who came earlier. When they approached, they noticed that the best seats were already taken. Samia looked and suggested one of the end seats by the counter. Iso noticed that they had arrived and the place was not bad. He smiled and said that today they would be under Samia's protection. After 2 hours, they still hadn't sold anything. He tried to attract buyers and praised his goods, but nothing worked out. Previously, he had worked only as a programmer and was not used to being a seller. Samia said it was only noon. Suddenly, someone asked how the trading was going. It was that guard. Iso said everything was going badly, and then the guard said he was lucky and would like to buy a knife. To the man's surprise, the boy said that when he checked their luggage, he saw very sharp knives, and he has a knife, but it is already very worn out and cannot be repaired or sharpened. He was glad that they had not yet bought all the knives in Izo. The man smiled and handed him a knife. The guard noticed that the knife was really good. When they asked about the price, it turned out that the knife cost 5 silver coins, and he was surprised at such a low price. After consulting with Samia, they decided not to set the price too high in order to earn at least a little. The guard quickly bought the knife. This was the first money Iza earned from her own work. The guard said that if the knife turned out to be too sharp, he would advise the ISO guards from his unit, and the man guaranteed that the knife would be very sharp. The boys were smiling, and Samia noticed that Izo was very happy. He was proud. After 3 hours, they had sold nothing. He noticed that the demand for agricultural tools was low. The boys had already started packing up when suddenly someone asked if they were leaving already. The guards approached them. Iso was scared because he thought he was in trouble. The threatening man asked if Marius had bought his knife from those boys. Ezio asked if it was the same young guard. The man smiled and said he knew they were here, then asked if there were any knives left. Isel shyly confirmed this, showing the knives, and the man asked to give him everything those boys had. Iso was embarrassed. The guard also said that Marius had returned from lunch and immediately started showing his knife. The knife was very sharp and first class. Everyone needed one like that, and they wanted to buy everything. The boy said there were 8 knives left at 40 silver each. The guards quickly took everything, admiring the sharpness. When the guards left, the old man approached Iso, who immediately began apologizing for the inconvenience, but the old man only said he was surprised and glad that Iso managed to sell everything. After some time, the boys went home. Samia said it was a great relief because they sold all the knives. Iso thanked the girl for today. Since they sold everything, he would need time to replenish the stock. Now Iso is confident that he can do not only simple repairs and orders. He should try to make a long sword. If he manages to negotiate with a merchant, the range of his goods will expand. Therefore, it is important to check the tools and axes for the farm yourself, and then he had to make her own room. The girl called Iso and asked him to make arrowheads. He asked if she needed them. She would need them for hunting when she recovers. Samia thought it would be good to have his arrows when that happens. He agreed to make them for her, and Samia was very happy. Tanda Azo could not resist the compliment. Today he is still focused on making knives, and then he will start making arrowheads for Samia. He will make a mold from clay, pour molten steel into it, and wait for it to cool. Edzo suggested taking it, sharpening it, and then attaching it to the handle when he finishes. He will also make a large saw to cut down trees, and then improve the axe he previously tried to sell. He will have to sharpen the saw teeth all day, and the next day he already started. He swung and quickly hit the tree, but hesitated when the axe got stuck. Suddenly, a rumble sounded. The whole tree was cut down and it quickly rolled down. The guys were amazed, and he realized that if he was careful, his second life would soon end. After preparing the fallen tree, it will be chopped into small pieces with an axe. The man called Samia, and the girl said that finally the time had come for this tool. Iso said that she had not fully recovered yet, so they needed to be careful. Eventually, they pulled the large saw in different directions to saw the tree. The tree fell and Iso thought it looked like tofu. The girl laughed and thought it sounded strange. Iso asked her not to laugh so hard because she was trembling. After some time, they finished. The man said it was fast, and at this pace they would manage by the end of the day. Samia said that usually it takes more time, and Iso's tools are wonderful. The man was silent. But the power to create these amazing tools lies in his basic knowledge. It is simply a privilege he has. In his second life, he wanted to succeed by his own efforts, not just because of this privilege. But he was grateful that he could use the gifts he received at first, because he was only a guest in this world. Therefore, he uses this power to live an ordinary life and not abuse his abilities. He worked late, and Samia returned to him. He asked what it was. The girl recalled that he said he wanted her to live here. He confirmed it, and Samia asked if it was still valid. He quickly agreed. The girl thought and said she was very grateful to him for the help. Even after arriving here, she still couldn't do anything, but she enjoyed helping him with work. they had interesting conversations over food, and she also liked their walks. Most of all, she liked watching his work when he was doing something. That's why she asked if everything would be fine if they lived together. He smiled and said that when he says so, he doesn't see any problem with it. Samia was delighted and slapped him on the back in gratitude. He said it hurt. She laughed and he said he was done. She looked admiringly at the tip. Samia said it was wonderful and he thanked her. Quite slowly, but the ISO place in this world is forming. Countless small decisions that he makes now and in the future. He hoped this was the first moment in a long series of pleasant moments. The city guards said they were very glad they bought the knife and asked when Eza would come again because next time they would buy more. Seeing this, the girl apologized, and the guards asked what was wrong. The girl asked to look at the knife. She was very curious. Yuzo handed over the bag and said she had just recovered, so if she felt in danger, she must immediately return home. Samia replied that she knew and left, and the man asked her not to overexert herself. After this, he could get to work. It was necessary to replenish the stock of goods, so from today he would also start making long swords. When he was convinced that the molds he made yesterday had dried, he split them in half and took out the male model, then reassembled them and placed them in a barrel of sand, into which he poured molten iron. When it cooled, I removed the clay and took out the iron. After that, he removed the burrs around the iron with a hammer and file, then heated it and slightly changed its shape. Finally, the sword is polished, the blade sharpened, the final touches made, the scabbard fitted, and the handle wrapped with leather. After this, he makes a wooden sheath. Usually different specialists handle this, but thanks to the priority mode, he can independently perform some tasks in this workshop. He gladly created a brand in the shape of a cat. The model was the cute Dory, his pet on social media. The first stage is complete. Over the next few days, they will mass-produce ordinary models and lower-quality knives. He made the sword himself. Iso waved his finished sword. Suddenly, Samia asked what he was doing. He blushed. He wanted to explain himself, but only greeted her. The girl said she was home. Iso asked what happened because she blushed. The girl said everything was fine, she was just happy. He understood and smiled. Izo said she liked it when someone met her at home. Samia agreed with a smile. This happiness Izo did not gain in that world. He asked how the hunt went, and the girl said she had killed a tree deer. She took out the organs and soaked it in the lake so they could pick it up tomorrow morning. He asked about the arrows and knife. The girl replied that they were excellent. The next morning they carried the deer into the house, killed and processed it. Sami explained the whole process, and ISO helped. The skillful hands of Sami and the sharpness of Iso's knife combined. They instantly skinned it and cut the meat. That's how they finished it. Sami said it was quick. Ezra thought that butchering the meat was not difficult. When they had cut it up, it looked exactly like the meat that man was used to. He realized that in the old world fruits were sweet, and meat was cut into convenient pieces for eating due to human intervention. The guys lit a fire and started cooking dinner. Iso asked what Sami did with the animal's organs. She explained that she left the entrails and bones in the forest, and wolves would come to eat them. The man noted that she left them in the forest. He started eating and said he hadn't eaten fresh meat in a very long time. The girl said that next time she would catch a bird because fried ones taste better. The man smiled and said that sounded good and he would really wait. Swami smiled. Adequate nutrition is one of the most important conditions for a peaceful life. They took the rest of the meat to the workshop for drying. Iso had always wanted to make jerky. The next morning Iso politely addressed Sami, but she said it was disgusting. He said it was cruel, then asked why she wouldn't help him if she wasn't hunting today. The girl gladly agreed. While working, he asked if she wanted to remove the thorns and she was happy. When he asked Sami for help, they made enough product to go to the city again. At the entrance, Larius immediately recognized the guys. The guard said he was worried because the guys hadn't appeared for a long time. Iso explained that because of him, they ran out of all the goods. Mario quickly noticed that Iso also had swords today and said he might come in to look later. Today they lived next to that good man. Iso suggested going shopping while there was time because they needed salt and wheat. The girl agreed. He laid everything out and said that they could just sit and rest. The weather was good. Suddenly, a rich man approached him and asked to look at the sword. When Iso agreed, the man quickly examined everything and enthusiastically said that it was good. But he said he would buy 4, and Etzo, surprised, asked if the man was sure. The stranger replied that he was a traveling merchant and wanted to take one for himself and sell the rest elsewhere. Iso understood that if they sold them elsewhere, it could be an opportunity to expand the business. He sold the swords and thanked the man. Azo was happy. He thought that maybe one day, when they gathered enough money, he and Samia would go on a business trip. Eyes outward, after that, Marius brought his colleagues there to help the man. the usual model of swords was sold out. Only the expensive specimen remained, which Iso was not going to sell. He smiled and said that enough swords had been sold, so they could go. Samia noticed something unusual. She said that she rarely saw a gnome. Iso pondered. The girl explained that it was almost impossible to meet them here. Earlier, she had only led one gnome she met in the forest to the road. Suddenly, the girl turned and went to the boys. She quickly asked Iso if he had made knives for the guards, and he confirmed. The girl looked at them and asked for permission to examine them more closely. Iso agreed. She carefully examined the knife for several minutes, then her gaze flashed. She looked at Iso and asked if he could show her his best work. The luxurious model was several levels higher than the usual one. Iso was not going to show it because he decided to sell it to the man who was worthy of it, and he was surprised that the girl saw the knife and was convinced that there was something better. Iso pulled out a luxurious model and asked the girl to look at him. She apologized, raised the sword, and looked at the weapon for a long time. Iso noticed that she had large hands for her stature. They fell silent. The girl turned him in all directions, examining carefully, while Samia and Iso watched awkwardly from the side. The man said that she had been staring for a long time. Iso greeted and saw off new clients, but the girl was still looking at the sword. Iso hesitated awkwardly. After this, she lowered the sword, thanked Iso, and returned it with gratitude, while the man looked at her puzzled. The girl quickly said that she has one request. Immediately after that, she touched the ground with her hands. She bowed low and asked Iso to take her as a student. The man was surprised that she knelt down. At the market, the girl told me that her name is Reich Moritz, and she is very glad to meet you. They could not pass by the dwarf who knelt in the middle of the street, and Echo wanted to talk to her first. He did not want Samia to end up in the crowd. The girl was surprised to hear that name. Reich said that this is not so, and Moritz is not a surname, but the name of a workshop. Gnomes are essentially a group of families who come together to form a workshop, and those born in it take its name. Her name was Reich. She was from Moritz's workshop. Izo introduced himself and also gave his name. The girl asked if the boys were from the north. Izo agreed and said that due to circumstances, he settled in the Black Forest and works as a blacksmith. The girl noticed this and said that she was curious because before coming here, she had not seen a blacksmith who could make such products. Izo asked why she wanted to become his apprentice. The girl said that gnomes start training at a certain age. He and his brothers left the workshop to study. Reich visited many places in search of a teacher. They look for good master classes and attend them as students, then return to their native workshop to create new things with new techniques, and then return again to the workshop where they studied. That's how dwarves live. Iso asked if they were worried about a possible leak of production technologies. Rick said that it is an honor for the workshop to have a dwarf as a student, and for the dwarf, it is a chance to grow and return their skills. A few days ago, when Rick arrived in this city, she saw a knife in the hands of one of the guards, one of those made by Iso. Since this man is not in the city, but works as a blacksmith in the free market, Reich decided to release the brothers and wait until he appears here again. Iso asked if that meant her brothers had already found a teacher. Reich said they went to the workshop they were supposed to go to. Now, if Iso refuses her, she will have to look for another workshop on her own. So realized that it was dangerous for the young girl to travel alone. Samia was silent. The man agreed to teach her but set 4 conditions. She listened carefully. First, he did not like her decision to sacrifice herself, so she can no longer do that. There was not enough space in the house, so they would have to make additions. Third, based on the previous, she would help him not only with blacksmithing. The girl agreed, and the last condition remained. He said there was no need to be formal. He would call her Reich, and she could call him Izo. The girl told the master that she could not do that. He froze. Reich said she was a student and therefore should respect her master. Samia laughed loudly. So they decided everything, went home in the evening, and when I said they had arrived, he pointed to their house and workshop, and Reich was delighted. When they entered, Iso asked how the girl's feet felt. He thought that with all this baggage, she seemed not used to walking. The girl said that she was strong, so it was easier for her to walk than he thought, and Izo said that she could put down the luggage and wash her hands. After that, he thanked Samia. He noticed that she was very worried about Reich, and therefore chose the safest path. The girl was surprised that he noticed this. Esko thought that she was very happy. Then they got ready for dinner. Esko noticed that they had nowhere to stop, so for now she would sleep with Samia. The girl said that she could not interfere between them, so she could sleep on the floor and leave the double bed to the boys, and Iso said that they always sleep separately, so there was no problem. The girl asked distrustfully if they were not married. Samia said that she and Iso were not in such a relationship. Reich said that it looked like that. The man asked if representatives of different positions could get married. Izo said that it was not like that. and for now he had no relationship with Samya. The girl asked in surprise what for now meant. Samya blushed and fell on the table. Reich understood that they were a family and lived in the same workshop. Izo was surprised to hear about the family. He smiled and said that it looked like that. Samya looked at him with admiration. Iso said that he was the owner of this workshop, and until more rooms were built, he would use only the room distribution he described, without changes, and so she started the next day. After a night's rest, they weeded the land to clear space for an extension to the house and dug holes for the posts. Samya went hunting, so they stayed with Reich. It seemed she was used to such work and had developed muscles. So they were walking quite fast. Samya happily said that she had returned. Iso greeted her and asked how everything went. The girl said that she had killed a deer. Suddenly she asked what happened to Reich. The girl said that she used to want to chop wood, but it was like a hot knife through butter, and she did not understand why it was so sharp. Samya said with a smile that it shocked her, and when she saw it for the first time, she was also a little scared. Yuza was surprised that she really thought about it. The man told Rinka that tomorrow they would start blacksmithing and simultaneously work on construction. The girl gladly agreed. Iso decided to make a female uniform by night, and it was a good idea. They had to combine efforts to disassemble the carcass of a large wood deer that Samya had killed the previous morning. After a short rest, they got to work and put on the female uniform that ESO made yesterday. Reich has great experience. Her hands do not stop. She works very diligently. They decided to eat a little and make a knife. Iso did not know how he could teach Rick a special skill. Rick approached him and noticed embarrassment on his face. He decided to be honest. Iso apologized and said that he had never had a female apprentice before, so he did not know exactly what to teach her. The girl gladly said that she could watch and learn, and Iso should not worry because she would not miss any movement of his hands. At first, he will make a regular knife model for mass production. He quickly struck the steel while Reich watched. When he finished, the man said that now the blade could be sharpened. He asked Reich if she had learned anything. The girl smiled and agreed that the master was amazing. She said that it was as if she heard the voice of iron. She also noticed that he was doing it unseriously. Iso asked in surprise how she understood that, and she said that he seemed not to be fully committed, and the sword was not like the one he showed her then. Iso said that this was a knife for mass production. He wanted me to make this model for him, so he first showed how to make it. He said that Rika needed to make one such knife. The girl agreed. Immediately after this, she got to work. Iso thought he had never seen others do it this way. Suddenly he froze, noticing Reich's movements, silently watching. Then the girl handed him a knife and asked what he thought. Iso noticed that she did well, and the knife was no worse than his usual model. He said the knife was good, but felt a slight difference in strength, and this knife would only improve. Iso was confident that Reich could make something as good as the sword he showed her. The girl happily said she would try. Izo agreed and said he would make another one today so she could see, and this time he would complete it fully. Seeing for the first time how a man forged iron, he realized that thanks to privilege he knew how to handle iron. He knows when and where to strike. He feels the temperature and hardness of the water. He can give the desired shape without sacrificing quality, but this, of course, is the result of hard work. Riker and the other masters trained and learned independently from the very beginning. He thought about what should not be taught. If not taught, she can at least simply imitate, Reich observed. Then the man finished and thanked the girl for waiting. She took the knife and was very frightened. Reich said it was amazing, and it was strange that a person could create such a thing. Even a dwarf would not have managed this. Izo said he could give her this knife. Reich asked if he really did not mind. The man agreed and said he could not sell it because she was his apprentice and like family to him. She joyfully thanked him and said she would dedicate herself to this place. The man wished her luck. Suddenly Samya entered the room. She happily said she had finished processing the meat and hides. Suddenly she held her breath, noticing that Rick had made a knife. Izo watched, then they fried the meat. Reich noticed that the man was using magic. Iso observed that these were only simple spells. The girl was surprised that he could cast spells, and Sami said that he also has a surname. She was very proud. Reich asked Iso's surname, and he said it was Tenuya. The girl noticed this and said that now she was Reich Tenuya. Samya, not believing, asked why. Distrustfully, Reich said that this was her mentor's surname, and that if this was Tanya's workshop, then as a student she was called Reich Tanya, and Iso wrote everything down. Izo said that he did not want to use his surname for the workshop's name, and that it was better to call it Izo. Then the girl quickly said that she was Reich Izo. The man thought that even if this was a custom, calling him by his name would be inconvenient. Samya said that it was unfair, and that she would also call herself that. Iso did not know what to say to this child. Samya asked if she could call herself Samya Tenuya or Samya Azo. The The man remembered that he had invited her to live here, so he agreed. This is family, so everyone was very happy. He considered himself a guest in this world and did not think he would leave anything behind, but now something else appeared in his life. At night he thought about it. If Right can create such things in this world, then it means she has serious abilities. In fact, in his previous world, making such a sharp blade was impossible. ISO wondered what his special skill would bring to this world. Besides Samia, Reich joined the family as a student, and thanks to Reich's serious attitude to work and Samia's willingness to help, ISO got more time to focus on work. The productivity of their ISO workshop increased. About once a week they go to the market to sell their products. At ISO they meet familiar faces. Marius said that in recent days many people had seen ISO's goods and asked who made them. The man thanked the guards for the advertisement. The old man said he would come later for shopping. They have knives, long swords, and spearheads. They also differ in quality. First of all, this is a regular model for daily use, mass-produced. Its price set by the market so that a housewife could buy it, and it is popular because of its sharpness. The mid-range model is bought by those who know how to work with quality blades. It is a reasonable price, and it can be sold for more if the wholesale seller works in a place chosen by experts. The newest model, which people do not see, ISO decided to sell it only to those it considers worthy, premium class. The blade into which ISO invested the full potential of privilege has high quality and is dangerous to sell, but if they did not sell it, it would not become an official product, and this would embarrass ISO. Later everything was sold out. Samia thought that customers spoke well of them. Reich asked if it was time to replenish ore supplies. She inquired whether there was a supplier for the house and workshop that suited him. They had everything necessary, but supplies were running out. He decided it was worth asking about it. Suddenly someone called them. The man heard that they had gathered their things and hurried here. ISO thought he made it in time. Everything was sold thanks to the man's generosity. He was happy for them. The goods were in demand and the man was asked to buy more. If Ezo had known, he would have spent another 10 nights bringing everything. The man noted that ISO was hardworking, and the other replied that he wanted to see silver from the one who constantly forged iron. The man said that this was what he needed. He wanted to open a shop in this city that would not be ordinary. ISO congratulated him. The man said that he used to deal with people and has connections. He wants to open a store that will sell this. Unlike the market, in the store you can sell everything without restrictions. Izo noticed this. The man asked if Izo would allow selling blacksmith tools and weapons there. Izo inquired if the man was sure. He knew well the quality of Azo's swords. The blacksmith was not sure if that man used them. He understood that this was not enough to stay in this city. He saw more and more people looking at Azo's products and wanting to meet the blacksmith. Azo asked if the man was a wholesale supplier, and if he agreed, then everything was fine. Camillo introduced himself and said he was glad to meet you. Azo also introduced himself. Camillo said that with such skills Izo could live anywhere, and added that nothing can be done because the beastman and the dwarf accompany him. Wholesale deliveries once a week, and SO will notify in advance if this changes. Camille agreed. Suddenly Izo asked for a favor because they were running out of ore, coal, and other resources, and he was looking for help, and Camillo said he could find and buy everything. ISO said that Camillo kept them. That man said he would deduct it from the payment for the goods. IZO managed to find a place to purchase materials. The store will open next week, and IZO will deliver the goods simultaneously. A week later, they came to the store. It is huge, and everyone was surprised. Etso came in and thought that it was incredible. His things were displayed. Semya said that in this form it did not look like they were for sale. Iso agreed. Camillo noticed the boys and called them upstairs to talk. Izo brought a knife, a sword, and something else today. He asked how much was needed. The man asked for everything. Their goods sell well. Izo inquired if Camillo was a famous merchant. He replied that they have many goods because they sell them to everyone, and because of this, he expanded the store. Camillo wondered what Izo would do when he asked to make a custom sword. Izo thought Camillo wanted to know who he would sell to, but they could not start without an order. Camillo asked if Izo refuses. The man said he wants to choose the person for sale himself. Camillo suggested verifying the identity and possession of the sword so that ISO could be assured. The man said the client would receive a reward if he came to his workshop himself. You can only reach the workshop through a forest full of wolves. He will manage if he can pass this path. He will allow Camillo to assess the character, and if the merchant decides that the client is suitable, will say where they are, and after consent will ask the girls for permission for this. Both did not care. Iso asked if they received the materials. They had many things and Camillo called them. He led them to a huge warehouse. Camillo showed it to me. Azo said that this would last for some time. He asked how much it cost. He can maintain a constant stock of items. When the price was named, ISO thought it was a quarter of the wholesale price and it was too cheap. Camillo said it was not scary. ISO thanked the man, but it was hard to carry it in his hands, so he asked if Camillo had thought about a cart, and the merchant replied no. He said he has a visa that he wants to throw away, but after a little effort it will be good. Etzo asked how much he wants for it. The man replied that he will give it away for free because he does not use it himself. He asked why Camillo was so kind. The man said that he was a supplier with a good future. It is important to have a supplier who can provide good goods at a reasonable price, and Ezo should be grateful. The man understood and said he was grateful to Camillo. Then the guys went back. Aso said it was a bit difficult to drive off-road, but he would get home. The guys offered to clear the road. Reich said that then it would be easier for those who want to place an order to reach them. Suddenly Samia smelled a wolf, so they had to stop and wait until it left. Izo noticed that they often met them, just like in the morning. Samia said they would soon have a litter. Izo added that they could see them with the cubs. Reich asked if the wolves here were so calm that they did not attack. Samia said there were many deer and rabbits there, so no one worried about prey. Reich also had guys. Izo thought that the stronger ones would be attacked less often. The girl was not sure but did not want to put everyone in danger. She realized that she should not be there alone. Samia said it was better for Rika to take them outside with her. Wolves are very smart and more sociable, not like steppe wolves. I did not know if they became like that to survive or if it was evolution. There are forest wolves and bears around. It is still very dangerous here, so Rika should be careful, and suddenly he froze. The bear that attacked Samia was still in the forest. Even a werewolf would be in danger if he met it, and it was scary in the forest. The big bear turned away after it ate. Iso struck the iron with a hammer. He thought he didn't look that bad after all. Rank said she looked better than before. She was glad they managed to get good materials. Izu said he believed her and they needed to continue. They put the purchased cast iron into the magic furnace. It does not produce slag, so it is more efficient because it can be reused without damaging the furnace. Reich was impressed. Usually this is a quick business. It requires equipment and workers, but here he is helped by benefits. He feels sorry for the craftsman, but he is glad he can work in the forest. After a few days, everything settled for him. This week he could focus on the house. Samia came, asked if Iso was finished, and invited him to go with her. He went inside and saw that the roof was ready. The man thanked Reich for the work. She said it was not difficult. Izu apologized for not coming to them earlier. The girls were engaged in expansion, and he was doing blacksmithing. The girls worked well. He said it was probably hard for them. Reich said their strength was above human. They said he could count on them, and Etzo thanked them. He told Camillo to buy Bedlin later. All they need to do is make doors and furniture. Reich was surprised that he wanted to install doors. He did not understand her. Reich said that even in a noble house they are installed only for guests or the owner. Samia did not live in an ordinary house and did not know about this. Esso thought his voice was like from another world. He needs them and everyone in his house will have doors. Samia recently asked if Iso was going to the city. He said he would stay here. Reich asked what he would do. Izo realized that since he ended up in this world, he had not rested. Stability was more important to him, so he worked moderately. Sales in the store were going well, and he had free money. So he decided to rest a little. During the walk, Samia asked what Iso thought about it. He said the river looked nice. They decided to stay there. It was an hour's walk from home. A measured life, a long vacation. He wanted to spend time as he wished. He started fishing. At home, he took a thread, made a hook from a nail, and assembled a fishing rod. He found bait under a stone. He thought the girls would be scared, but they didn't care. After that, they started fishing together. It was quiet. He thought it was a wonderful day. Having spent time in company, Iso began to live better, but because of work, he still felt like a workaholic. Iso himself did not know when he had rested like that. Samia was out of breath, and Iso asked her to wait and feed the fish. Then he told me when to pull it out. The girl pulled a fish out of the water. Rick told Samia to put it on the ground, and she would pull out the hook. Since they started talking together, Iso became more open. He was calm, then the guys started having lunch. The catch was good. But Iso did not catch any fish. Samia decided that he had a great thirst for blood. Iso was scared. The girl said that fish sense danger before a predator. The man said there was no need to hurry. There was still a whole day. They lay down to rest. It was a vacation where there was no need to chase results. Sometimes it's good just to relax. There was no fish for half a day. Samia could not find or shoot them. Ezo said the girl took out all the organs except the heart and left them there. He asked what happened to the heart because she did not bring it. Samia buried it in the ground. When she dies, the forest will give her life. The heart symbolizes the soul. What they do not bury, the wolves will eat. Some of them know and wait nearby. Animals have their own customs, and someday Aizo will also die. He came from another world and wanted to find out if he could become part of the forest. Ezel changed location, but there was no fish. The sun was setting, and it was time to give up. They caught 2 fish, 1 per person. So far he hadn't been lucky. Even if it's just a pastime, he needs to spend more time in nature. He wanted to catch at least 1 fish. Samuel laughed at him. He said that it was not so. Suddenly the fish began to bite. He set the hook. He calmed down and pulled out the fish. He caught a fish and boasted about it. The fishing was not very successful, but they felt good. The rest went well. He looked at the girls and thought that tomorrow he would continue working and building the house. The boys were very satisfied. As O said, they both did well, and now the extension is complete. The house foundation is done. In every new room, windows and doors were installed. In the bedrooms, beds and shelves for things were installed. New rooms are bedrooms for girls. Aso returned to his room, and the study was turned into a living room. Today, everyone can go to their rooms. Reich was nervous because it was the first time. Samia couldn't wait to sow the field. They have meat and nuts, but vegetables have to be bought. Izzo wanted to grow vegetables himself and be as independent as possible. The unsold hoe and sickle turned out to be useful. Rick said that she does not manage the household, but the master knows a lot. Samia agreed. Izzo combined knowledge from the past world and what he gained during rebirth. It was normal that he was strange. There were things he did not know in the past world. At night, he sat on the bed. He slept on the bed for a long time. He has been sleeping at his desk since he came into the world. He still has the skill of an office worker, which he hates. He did not know if it was right. He became younger, but inside remained the same old man. He thought he should work more. Someone was walking through the forest in Sami with Frasu. Aizu asked what it was. The girl said someone had come. Someone started knocking, saying they came from Camillo and wanted a sword. Azo thought the voice was very loud. He opened the door. Iso greeted the guest. The girl asked if he was the master who made Camillo for the shop. Her name was Helen. Iso introduced himself, thinking she was noisy. He led her into the house as the first guest. The boys met her. The man asked if she came alone, and Helen answered yes. Etzo asked if wolves attacked her, but no. It was hard for her to find this place, but she saw smoke and went there. Ezra realized she was so strong that wolves kept away from her. The girl said they live in a wonderful place. The condition was to go through the forest alone and come to the workshop, and the girl did it. Izzo said he would make her a weapon and asked what he should do. She pulled out knives and said she was a mercenary. She was used to this, but she needed something stronger. On the battlefield, you cannot always take care of your weapons, but their life depends on whether they can use them. These are 2 daggers. They are all scratched due to constant use. ISO created weapons and equipment for battles. If someone takes a sword that he made himself, his opponent will be defeated regardless of strength. Someone will suffer because of what he created. It was so, and it will always be so. Aiza will never ignore or accept this. He did not want to get used to indifference. He said that swords are good. ISO said that the blacksmith who made them was skilled. When Helen allowed, he showed them to Rita. The girl also said that he is kind, and Helen did the right thing by addressing her master. Helen said that since even the dwarf said so, she agreed. The man asked how she would use it. She asked what that meant. Aiza wanted to know how swords work in practice when she strikes, and the girl said it is hard to explain and better to show. She stood up and began to show her skills. Aizo thought that she was very fast. He realized that she uses one for balance and the other for strikes. Helen said that she finds it hard without an opponent and wants Aizo to fight with her. The man said that she should fight Samia because she was more experienced in battles. Helen said that the man seemed stronger. Samia could not deny anything. Aizo believed that in this world he had no combat experience, but this body knows how to fight. It is coordinated and feels it. Samia said that Azo is strong. The man agreed. Aizo thought it was just a show for him and did not intend to give herself completely. He asked her not to strain herself, but she did not want it to turn into a joke or an attack. Isaac quickly repelled the attack and began to defend himself. Helen was very fast, and he found it hard to keep up with her. She was a lightning bolt. Suddenly, as if stumbling, Helen said that he was good. The man wanted to rest. If he turned away, he would be torn apart immediately. It is hard to be constantly on the move. He actively dodged her attacks. The man froze, unsure if she was joking. When they got tired, the man was glad to have survived. Helen said he was strong. He asked if it would have been better just to follow her movements. She said she planned to take a couple of hits and finish him off. She was nicknamed Lightning Sword because they barely kept up with her. She said she got carried away and then apologized. He said that now he understood better, thinks he can finish in 2 days, and advises her to return on the 3rd day. She asked if it was time for her to return. Etso asked what she planned, and the girl replied that she wanted to continue their fight. Iso said that in that case, he would not be able to make the weapon. She understood and asked to be shown the creation process. Iso was embarrassed and said it would take 3 days. Helen said she would stay here, and the man hesitated. Suddenly, he remembered that he had already prepared a guest room. The man looked at the girls and said there was nothing to be done. Helen gladly thanked him, patting him on the back. Thus their workshop Ezel received its first client. After the man met Helen, he decided to finish the rest of the day's tasks as soon as possible. Samya approached him and said that she had already processed them. The man turned and told her to leave them in that corner. The girl smiled and said that in that case she would clean and sharpen the arrow tips. Izo smiled, then called Samya by name. Samya turned around and asked what had happened. The man said that she is getting better and better. Immediately after that, he thanked her, and the girl blushed with joy. Happy Samya was busy with her own affairs. On days when there was no hunting, the girl helped Izo in his workshop. She mainly did casting and deburring. It was clear that she enjoyed it. He continued to work and hoped that someday he would be able to allow her to work with a hammer in this workshop. At the same time, Helen watched very carefully every stroke that Isle made. Then the man took a break, called all the residents of the house, and said it was time for dinner, and Helen, Samya, and Reich happily went. Helen at the table said that she was very surprised to see a big deer on the way here. Samaya said that such a deer could be a serious problem. After that, Helen said she would be careful. The girl with a smile recalled that she had seen a bear from afar. Hearing this, Samya, Isa froze, and the girl touched her belly. Iso wondered if he was still nearby. Helen asked if something was wrong. After that, the man said that a bear attacked Samya and she almost died. Then he found her. Helen was worried and said she understood. Then she added that she could have defeated him if the weapon had been in perfect condition. Yuzo also said that she should not do anything rash, because even for the beastman Samya, who lives in this forest, the monster was dangerous. The man also added that they were unlikely to find Helen if something happened. The girl was surprised but smiled and said she understood. Later, Iso slapped himself in the face, thinking that this was the first order in his workshop. He decided to put his whole soul and heart into this order. He took out the metals and began to stoke the stove. Helen will go scouting tomorrow, but today she took Samya to the forest to teach her how to hunt. Imagining how Helen handled the blades yesterday, the man heats the iron and evenly hammers it across the entire surface to level it. He carefully ensures that the material has optimal strength. Thanks to the eyes God gave him, Esso could see something like grain in the structure of iron. Then he trims it to shape and ensure uniformity and accuracy. Watch the master's actions closely. After that, he poured the metal into the mold, turned to Reich and said he would check the strength and asked him to bring a standard short sword. The girl ran off and said to wait a minute. Iso stuck an ordinary sword into the tree, then raised the ready sword and swung, hitting it. The sword got stuck for a moment, but Iso applied more force and completely broke the ordinary sword. He sighed happily and said that the sword was strong. Reich looked at him admiringly and said that there was not a single scratch left. The man looked at the other sword and said that it could no longer be sold. Reich asked what that meant. She asked if resharpening was enough to restore it to its original form. Iso said the quality would suffer significantly. He said he didn't want to sell something he had used for that at all. The man said that in this case, it is better to redo it and use it at home. Reich said that her master is very stubborn. Iso Grandin said that this is correct. The girl laughed. She thought the master was stubborn and honest. He was very serious. Although he was given incredible power, he worked with all possible caution and attention. Once in the past, he got a little closer to what he wanted to do. Iso was very happy about this. After long painstaking work, he finally left his mark on the hilt, wiped the sweat, and raised the sword with satisfaction, saying that the first one was ready. Reich folded her hands in great admiration and asked for permission to take a closer look at the sword. Iso agreed, and the girl immediately raised her sword. Reich carefully examined all the details, after which she blushed with admiration. Ezan noticed that she did not miss a single detail. The man asked her what she thought about it. Reich froze, looking at the sword. She said that this could not be achieved by talent alone. She apologized for having offended him in the past, but sincerely believes that his departure for any reason is a great loss for the entire North. Iso was a little surprised by such praise. Reich confidently said that this was exactly so. At that moment, the man realized that she was speaking seriously. He thought that she could be trusted, and it was not just talent. Sometimes he tries to use this power to the fullest to achieve a specific goal. This time he made the steel stronger, so it would not be able to cut a stone in half. But if sharpness were the priority, then it would probably be possible. This is incredible power for a weapon, and he wondered what would happen if he could make it not only from ordinary steel. Strong and sharp, he can create a weapon that combines both. He could do it. This meant that if he was not careful enough, it could affect the fate of the owner, but the threat from such a weapon far exceeds any benefit if it falls into the wrong hands. Izo was not at all ready to take on such a great responsibility. Reich looked at him and anxiously asked if she had offended the master in any way, and the man replied that no, he just thought a little. Reich was a little embarrassed and blushed, looking at the master. Enzo decided that he would not be upset about something that had not yet happened. He asked the girl to finish as quickly as possible today, and she agreed. He decided that he would think about it when he received the order. At least he was glad that Reich could be his student. If Reich could create something that people would consider valuable, then it would mean that everything was fine for now. Suddenly Samia and Helen entered the room and said that they had returned and brought many things. The girl said that there were many herbs from separation, old sour and old sweet. Suddenly Samia called Izo and hesitantly said that today the wolves were making some sounds. She was sure that then Helen saw a big black bear. Izo recorded her words. The girl was very tense. The man said that he understood and in any case they should sit down for dinner. He smiled, and Samia also agreed with a smile. The room became a little quieter. Izo thought that he did not want to expose Samia and Reich to danger, so he himself must be careful. The next day he worked as a blacksmith again. Today was the second day of working on the order, and this time Helen would also observe the work. Looking at the process, the girl said that it looked very simple. Reich proudly said that it was all thanks to the master and his incredible speed and quality of work. Helen asked with interest if Reich could do the same. The girl replied that she did not know if she would ever catch up with the master, even if she trained all her life. Helen could not believe that it took so much time. Iso thought that he was very pleased to hear this, but for him it was only a gift from Mygotes, and this praise hurt him. He looked at Helen, pondering the girl's nickname. Iso smiled proudly and said that both swords were ready. Helen happily said she would try them immediately, but Ezo stopped her and explained that it was already late today, so it was better to do it tomorrow, and the girl was very surprised by these words. Izo apologized for the fact that she still had to wait, and he regretted it, but he would have to wait until tomorrow. The girl wanted to object but had to agree. Now they wanted to rest. Izo set the table and invited everyone to dinner. Samia said excitedly that it was wonderful. Isle awkwardly noted that she was exaggerating. Helen asked if it was the raspberry she picked yesterday. The girl did not know that she could be taken advantage of like that. Reich said that even her parents rarely do that. Ezel also said that today he finished his first commissioned work, so they were celebrating. Samia understood him and congratulated him. Reich also congratulated Iso on this. The man thanked the girls and said that they also helped him with the work. Helen was no less happy and congratulated them on this. Iso said that she was the one who made the order, so they were grateful to her too. She smiled. Then the man said it was time to eat before the food got cold. The next day Helen looked at the sword and said that it fit perfectly in her hand. She was so excited that she couldn't sleep last night. Iso asked her to try the swords. Helen skillfully waved the sword, repeating various techniques, and in every movement she was agile and graceful. The guys were happy. Helen sighed and said that everything was fine. Then she put the swords on the ground and ran, which surprised Iso. The girl hugged him tightly and said that she was very glad she asked him about it. Iso said that everything was fine and was glad. A moment later he shouted that her grip was too strong and it hurt him. He coughed hard and said he tested the strength, but if anything happened, he would fix everything. She just needs to go to Camillo or here. Helen agreed and then started talking about money. Izo said she could pay as much as she deemed necessary. The frightened girl said she knew nothing about market prices. Iso said he would be satisfied with the price she was willing to pay for this order. She was embarrassed. The girl offered Iso 2 gold coins and 1 silver coin. Iso accepted the money. Helen did not know if this was the usual price. She paid a little more than before, but she still doubted. Iso said that these swords were real and good, and he did not object at all. Then they shook hands. Helen left and Ezo said that her grip was very strong. Samia said that she and Reich used all their strength to save him. The girl said that they shouted loudly. Ezo laughed. They were ready to return to their usual life. Reich wanted to make sure they had enough long swords and blades. 2 days later, there was a clash with a natural threat. Samia addresses the main character and enters the building to report something. Iso notices that she returned quite quickly and assumes that something happened. Then the girl said that a black bear appeared, and the hero immediately asked if she was injured. Samia said that she had just noticed it and ran away. She adds that the bear could have followed her because it has a keen sense of smell. The hero is glad that everything is fine and thinks about what to do next. He understands that the bear came close, and the guys might meet it on the way to the city, and if they attack Samia or Rake, they most likely will not survive. Then Azo decides to go out briefly and tell others about it, steps away and takes out the spear he once made, and Samia is surprised by this turn of events because he is going to kill a bear. The hero asks the girl to close the door in the workshop and in the house while he is absent. Suddenly, Samia says that she also wants to go with him. He immediately objects and says that he is not sure if he can protect her. Then the hero adds that he understands this a little, asks the girl not to think that he underestimates her as an archer, and says that it is better to let him figure everything out himself. Iso recalls how after the fight with Helen he realized that his body was moving on its own, and although he avoided a fight with the bear, he decided that he was capable of it. Then the girl asks him to return alive. Suddenly Reich also asks him to return alive and unharmed. The hero says that he will not leave his family to die, and therefore promises to return. After that, Iso leaves the house and goes into the forest. Meanwhile, the girls close the door and begin to worry about him. Samia, seeing how Reich folded her hands and began to pray, decided to do the same, trying to hold back her emotions. The hero walks along the road for some time. The weather worsens, the wind begins to blow and it starts to rain. Iso heads to a place where he feels danger. He usually delegated the search for dangers to Samia, but if this is a threat on the level of a huge black bear, even Etso's cheating sense begins to cause anxiety. The smell and sounds are lost in the rain, so the hero decides that in a certain sense he has a chance to win because it will be difficult for the beast to find him. Suddenly Etso remembers something and smiles. He recalls that in the past world he gave his life to save a cat and realizes that now he is trying to kill the bear. Iso's body has changed, but the soul that gave its life for the cat remains the same. But now everything is a little different. The hero has someone to protect. At this moment he remembers Samia and Wright. Iso remembers that he was once lonely and worked hard on Black PR, having nothing, but now he has a family and acquaintances who appreciate what he creates. Then the hero addresses himself and says to pull himself together. Suddenly he finds himself in a place where he meets a black bear. Etso prepares for battle and points his spear forward. The bear approaches, stands on its hind legs, and becomes even taller. It lets out an angry roar, and the hero sees that a great opponent is in front of him. But then Iso apologizes to him and says it's not personal, after which the beast attacks him. The hero immediately realizes that despite its size, the bear is very fast. If the beast touches him even slightly, the blow could be decisive. Iso dodges, steps aside, and strikes the bear with a spear. After a moment, he realizes he has done little harm to it, and this frightens him greatly. The bear screams in pain and goes mad. The hero prepares to retreat a little, when suddenly he receives a strong blow, from which he does not manage to defend himself and is thrown back. Iso flew into the tree trunk and hit his back. This made him angry, and he decided that he should not die. The hero wants to protect his new life and his new world. He intends to defend the usual order that he and his family have so hard built here. Then Iso lunges at the bear and strikes it back. This makes the bear roar louder, but the hero does not give up. He wonders what he wants from life in this world, after which he pierces the beast's head with a spear. Then the hero says he won the fight, and the dead bear's body falls to the ground. Etso sees that the beast no longer moves or breathes, so he believes he has killed it. Then he approaches the body and raises his spear. The hero assumes that Samia might have been right when she said his weapon was too sharp and uncomfortable, and sits down on the ground to rest. He summarizes that he risked his life for the first time, noticing that he was so nervous he began to tremble, and even in priority mode this fight was very difficult for the hero. Iso notices that he has many bruises and scratches, but hopes that at least the bones are intact, then wonders what to do with the bear. The hero decides that the life he took must be eaten and buried, but first he needs to carry the beast's body home, and Iso is not very sure he can manage it. The rain is still falling. The hero struggles to carry the body of a large animal, and Iso admits that even with strength and muscles, the bear is very heavy. Then the hero notices that the rain is gradually subsiding. He hopes to make it in time before wolves or someone else attacks him. Iso stopped for a moment to look around when suddenly he heard a rustle from the side, and immediately someone rushed at him, knocked him to the floor, grabbed his leg, and pulled him close. After some time, the hero recognizes the girl, who for some reason was furious, and sees that Samia is baring her teeth at the bear, so he decides to tell her that the beast is already dead and asks her to calm down. Hearing this, the girl immediately changed her facial expression and was a little surprised. then stepped back from the hero and anxiously asked if he was okay, and he replied that everything hurt but the bones were intact and there were no serious injuries. Iso looks at the girl and smiles a little. Samia freezes for a moment, but after a second tears appear in her eyes and run down her cheeks. The girl immediately starts sobbing and shouting that she is very glad the hero survived, and Iso begins to think, when suddenly Samia throws herself into his arms, still hysterical. The hero begins to calm her down, stroking her head and saying that everything is fine. Suddenly he hears a rustle behind him, turns around, and sees another girl who says she hopes she did not disturb them. Iso recognizes her as Reich and says she did not disturb them. Suddenly the girl presses her face to his chest, and he yelps. It's all because the bruise on the hero's chest still hurts. Rick says that Samia noticed the hero was delayed, so she hurried to meet him. The girl could not leave her alone and decided to go with her. The hero was displeased because it could have been dangerous, but Reich smilingly replied that she could not send Samia alone, added that the scents of Iso and the black bear mixed, and then the girl set up an ambush, thinking something terrible had happened. After that, the hero and the bear appeared before them, looking like one. The girl was frightened. Hearing this, Iso understands Samia's reaction because he imagines how scary it was. He thanks her, but Reich says thanks should go to Samia. Then the hero thanks the girl for her care, and she gradually calms down. Iso tries to move away from her a little, but realizes that Samia has clung to him so tightly that he cannot free himself from her. This is what the power of a werebeast means. The hero sighed heavily and invited the girls to go home. They agreed. Then he managed to calm Samia, and the guys together began to carry the bear's body home. On the way, they lowered it into the lake and decided to come back for it tomorrow. Returning home, the hero barely stood on his feet. The girls were worried. Reich offered to prepare dinner, and Azo went to rest in the room. The hero takes off his shirt and begins to writhe in pain in his body. This frightens Samia again, but Iso convinces her that everything is fine. Then tears appear in the girl's eyes, and she asks if he is really okay. The hero answers yes, and adds that he needs to get himself together. He realizes that he is starting to feel drowsy and is already on the edge. Then his partner asks the girl to call him when the bath is ready, and his eyes involuntarily close. The hero falls asleep and presses against the girl, curling right into her chest, and this greatly embarrassed Swami, he begins to panic. But she sees that Iso has fallen asleep, calms down, and begins to comfort the hero, stroking his head and welcoming him back home. After some time, Isaac wakes up and feels that he is lying on something soft. He remembers that he did not have time to wash, quickly jumps up and finds himself in bed, still in clothes. The hero looks around and suddenly notices that Samia is standing nearby. The girl got scared and screamed, and he was very surprised by such a reaction. Iso decides to wish her good morning, and she replied the same. He concludes that he fell asleep from fatigue, and Samia confirms his guesses, then awkwardly says that Reich said that if the hero is not dressed, bad air will get into his body. Therefore, they decided to do it together, and laid Iso on the bed, when Reich herself entered the room and noticed that the hero was already awake. He agrees with her and apologizes for having to deal with him. The girl says it's no problem and brings him the washed clothes. She then tells us that Samia herself suggested it, but suddenly falls silent and asks her to be quiet. The girl asks not to say this, but Reich replies that everything is fine. The hero is a little surprised by this and notices that Samia is very shy. At this time, the girl tries to get the other out of the room on the pretext that they will go make breakfast. Then the hero begins to change clothes. He thinks a completely ordinary new day is beginning. The boys go outside, walk to the lake, take the bear's body, and carry it home, after which they cut it open and stuff it with vegetables. Then they start frying. Samia, who has never tasted bear meat, asks the hero if it is tasty. He assumes it is and notices that the fried bear meat looks appetizing. The story continues at the moment when the hero suddenly realizes that there is no bathroom in their house. Instead, Samia and Reich boil water, wipe themselves, and wash their hair in a bucket. Iso himself prefers to simply jump into the lake during his daily drinking. It is very refreshing for him. The hero says he has not heard complaints from the girls, but he is still worried. While Reich and Iso are doing housework, Samia returns home and reports this. He congratulates her on this and turns around. Suddenly he is stunned. The hero sees a dirty girl with prey and asks what happened, and she says that the place where they killed the animal she is holding got polluted after the last rain, so she got a little dirty. Iso notices that she is all dirty and wiping her with a rag won't work, which Rick agrees with, so he suggests she take a bath in the lake, although it's a bit troublesome. Samia asks for the opposite and says she will wipe herself when she dries, but the hero replies that then the bed linen will get dirty. The girl shouts that everything will be fine, and he insists that this is not the case at all. The hero notices that she also has dirt in her hair, so Samia starts shouting that she refuses to bathe in the lake. Then Rake joins the conversation and says that he will join too if Samia is going to bathe. This stuns the girl. Rake says that she hasn't been outside for a long time because going out alone is quite dangerous. She is confident that Samia will be fine and begins to object. But no one listens to her, and Rake tells the hero that they are setting off. He wishes them a good journey and is glad that they still manage to make Samia swim. The girls go to the lake and immediately enter the water. Rake says that the water is very refreshing, and Samia begins to resist them. The girl notices this and asks if she really doesn't like water, and she replies that she doesn't like water. Then Samia says that she often goes into the water to immerse the catch, but in such a situation she dives head first. She admits that she is not used to washing, but Rake notices that her hair and fur are always beautiful. Samia explains that she takes good care of them and carefully dries her body. Rake is surprised that with such minimal care, the girl always looks impeccable and says that it's cool. Samia is a little embarrassed and replies that she is always neat too. Rick says that it is always hot and stuffy in the workshop. Therefore, she decided to swim from time to time. Then she adds that she won't get here by herself, so today she decided to go with Samia. She thanks her for that. Then the girl asks to just inform her if she wants to come here. Samia promises to then take her from here. Suddenly, Rake approaches her to wash her hair. She shouts that it is not necessary. Then the girl says that she took care of the younger ones and asks Samia not to worry, but it doesn't help. Eventually, Rake gets his way and sits the girl in shallow water. She begins to comb her wet hair and whistle a melody, and this calms Samia. Although the girl remembers little about her childhood, it awakens an ancient feeling in her, and she closes her eyes and begins to enjoy the moment. After some time, they return home, and the hero is pleased with their return. Joyful Rake announces that they are home, and Sakamiya, standing behind, just smiles. Iso asks if they are cold, but one of the girls says that they warmed up by the campfire, and he informs that dinner is ready, which makes them even happier. After that, the hero decides to help the girls dry their hair and uses wind magic, saying that it is a secret technique called hand drying. After some time, the boys enter the house, and Samia faces the question of how to hold a spoon correctly. The hero asks what she is doing, and the girl realizes that she is holding the spoon incorrectly. Samuel reports that she cannot do it because Iso does not hold the spoon the way she does, and the hero understands that she is talking about the spoon and is a little surprised that it matters to her. The girl noticed that he holds the cutlery nicely and said that she would like to eat the same way, so she wants to imitate him, although it might be difficult. Suddenly, Raid approaches her and says that he can teach her to practice together. Then she asks the girl to first open her palm and hold the spoon between the thumb and index finger. At this time, the hero watches them with a smile. He thinks that Raid has a big family, so she is a great teacher. However, at first Iso did not even notice this. The girl tells Samia to hold the middle finger, and the hero is convinced that Rake can teach them a lot. After some time, the girl finally learns to hold the spoon correctly, and the boys applaud. Then they sit down to have dinner, and the hero puts on the table a plate of the usual soup for today. Samia sits at the table and decides to try the dish. With a stone face, brings the spoon to her mouth, and after a second says that it is very tasty. The girl tells Iso that today's soup tastes better than ever, and he notices that her reaction is quite natural, and then he adds that food tastes better when a person is happy. Then finally everyone starts eating. Reich feels that the soup has become tastier, and the hero agrees that it is no longer the same as before. Suddenly he notices that they are gradually becoming a real family. The girl tells her brother that she wants to hide in the Black Forest because a blacksmith lives there, and he gives her a letter and asks her to take it to a merchant who knows where the blacksmith is. The action moves to Camillo's shop. The man tells the hero that his goods will find a buyer. Suddenly he remembers that, according to rumors, the guard Marius has returned to the capital and asks about it. Then the hero says he wants to thank him for the help, and Camillo explains that something might be wrong in the capital and suggests that the guard came here because of that. But then the man adds that it is better if Ezo does not know too much about this and suggests that the information was free because he was not told the price. After that, the guys leave with the cart. At this time, a girl starts running towards them. The hero sees that the pursuers are standing in their way and realizes that he will be caught sooner. Samia also sees these people. Azo suggests that they are bandits, but the girl says it looks like a fight. Then he asks her to go and scout the situation. The girl starts running, and the hero manages to shout to her that they will catch up with her soon, after which he and Reich decide to leave. Iso grabs the cart and rushes after Samia, later noticing two girls fighting over someone in the distance, and draws his weapon, deciding to leave this to Reich. He bursts into the fight and asks what is happening here, after which he subdues one aggressive man. Because of this, another bandit gets angry and attacks the hero, but Samia manages to warn him. With a strong blow, the hero breaks the enemy's weapon and defeats him, after which he pays attention to the last opponent. The girl hits him with an arrow, and the hero says that no one else is left. Then he looks at the unknown girl and asks if she is injured. Then the hero asks her to tell why she was attacked, because they will have to justify themselves for killing the bandits, and notices that her face seems familiar, so he tries to understand who she is. The girl thanks the guys for their help and calls herself Diana Amour. She says that she had to leave the capital for a short time, but on the way she was attacked by pursuers. By the name Ezo, he understands that the girl is from the capital's aristocracy and is not lying. Then he thinks about what to do with this. The hero says that the guards will definitely come here and suggests the girl hide, to which she agrees, because this way they can buy time. Then he assumes that Diana will go to that person, and it turns out he was right. Izo decides to go to the forest and asks Rick to take the cart. Then he asks Samia for help and apologizes to her, but she replies that everything is fine. The hero realizes that today he used his weapon for its intended purpose for the first time, and this time he decided to protect his family. Therefore, Ezo does not feel guilty for what he did. Samia notices that he is leaning over the boy's body and asks what happened, but the hero answers that nothing special happened. After that, the guys decide to go home, but first Ezio asks Diana to tell him about the person she is going to. The girl says that this man recently settled in a remote place and adds that her older brother told her about it. Then she recalls that this man is also a blacksmith, and this momentarily stuns the hero. The girl says that her brother would like this blacksmith to repair his weapon, which he made. Then the hero remembers that person, realizes that it is her older brother, and is not surprised that Diana seems familiar to him. Ezo cautiously asks if her brother's name is Marius and wonders how he knows him, and at that moment the hero realizes that it is about him. Then she decides to tell Diana that she is the one her brother was talking about. The girl is shocked by this news. The hero understands her because it is hard to believe. The boys return home, and Esso says that Diana had a letter from Marius for Camillo and was supposed to meet the man who was to take her to the hero. He thinks that the girl's brother is quite strange because he decided to give his sister to some old man who lives in a dangerous place, and suddenly Diana interrupts him, asking the boys to say their names. The hero introduces himself to her and then introduces her to his family. After that, he thinks they have bought some time and suggests that Diana stay with them because the guards might catch up with them. The girl agrees. After arriving, the hero decides to unpack the luggage and then start cooking. Thanks to Sami's vigilance, they do not need to worry about being pursued. After that, Etzo shows the girl the bedroom, which clearly does not match the status of the place, but she reacts quite calmly. It is almost dinner time. Diana is delighted with such food. The hero asks her to sit down and try it. The girl says it is very tasty, and the boys are a little surprised. Then she apologizes and says she is just very hungry, but ISO replies that it is important to be able to enjoy food because it helps to get through hard times, after which Diana thanks them for accepting her. The hero tries to put himself in her place and wants the best for her, but after they eat, he finally decides to ask her to tell why she left the city. Azo explains that this will help them hide Diana well, and the girl decides to trust him and tell a little more about her family. Diana talks about her father, Count Amer, who rules the entire territory including Camillo. She has 2 brothers, Leon and Carol, and there are 4 children in the family in total. At first, Leon was supposed to be the heir, but later the situation changed. Leon goes with his father to defeat the horde of demons at the border. Unfortunately, their army was defeated, and the Count and his heir perished. After this, Marius returns to the capital, having learned the bad news, and during the investigation notices a suspicious detail. The girl remembers being told that a strong monster supposedly attacked the army, but there is no evidence of this, and the wounds of the Count and the heir were not from claws or fangs. Diana says that these were definitely cuts, then reflects on who could have benefited from the death of her father and brother, adding that suspicion fell on her second brother, Carol. The hero asks for the reason, and the girl explains that Carol is the son of a concubine, so the inheritance of the family throne belongs to Marius, the son of his lawful wife. Then she adds that Carol's mother died shortly after his birth, and Marius's mother took pity on him, so Carol was raised on equal terms with the other brothers and sisters. The girl admits that before the incident she did not even know about this, and the hero concludes that if the inheritance issue is not resolved soon, the lack of a report will lead to his title being revoked. He realizes that time is running out, and in response hears only silence from the girl. he thinks that the one who targeted Diana is her own brother. After this, he understands that Marius turned out to be the Count's son, although he seemed like an ordinary soldier. Suddenly, the hero announces that he is now convinced that it is better for the girl to stay with him for some time. This slightly confuses Diana, and the other girls begin to rejoice at this, especially after Etzo asks to be addressed with all questions. Diana says she is glad to work with them, and suddenly the hero begins to talk about conversion. He does not want to sound too official, so he suggests communicating more simply. The girl agrees to this and addresses ISO differently. After this, the boys continue to rejoice at the appearance of a new member of their family. A new day comes. The hero notices that everyday life has become a little different. He recalls how the girls during the day taught Diana household chores. After some time, Izo decides to get to work, and Diana also starts working in the workshop. She changes into work clothes and says she is glad to cooperate with them, after which the hero asks Samia to help her. Looking at the girl's work, the hero realizes that she remembers how he taught her and smiles. Then he notices that Diana is quite strong, although she is a noblewoman. Reich tells me that yesterday she saw her waving a sword, so he considers her quite skillful. Evening falls, and the guys decide that there is enough work for today. Iso greets the girl on her first working day, and then she notices that the swords are made with different quality. The hero says that the long sword is a standard model, and the short sword is a more luxurious model. Then Diana asks to look at it. He does not object but warns that the handle is not finished yet. The girl lifts the sword, and suddenly something lights up in her eyes. The hero looks at this and remembers that Reich was the same at the very beginning. Then Diana says that it is incredible. Suddenly, Reich approaches her and notices that she was also surprised to see these swords up close, and then tells me that only a few blacksmiths in the capital can do such work. He wonders if he is well versed in the level of blacksmithing skill in this world, since it is common here to encounter both expensive and cheaper models, so the hero, who sells high-class swords, will not be too noticeable. Suddenly, Diana turns to Izo and asks him to train with her. This shocks him, but the girl repeats the request, and the hero surprisingly realizes that Diana is also a fighter. The girl admits that she probably will not be able to defeat Iso this time, but wants to see it again. The hero understands that she means the moment when he saved her, and concludes that there is no other entertainment here. Then he tells her that he can do it only once because it will soon get dark, and she begins to thank him, after which he feels that Diana is not like an ordinary girl. The guys go outside, and the hero notices that she seems happy with the sword. He did not take the highest quality swords for safety reasons. At this time, other girls said that ISO is stronger than it seems, because people usually do not imagine how strong blacksmiths are, but he thinks they are exaggerating. Finally, Diana takes a fighting stance, and the hero asks her to attack when she is ready. Then the girl decides to do it and starts stabbing him with a sword. The hero successfully defends against them, but notices that every her move is agile and precise, and realizes that she is much better than an ordinary swordsman, although not as skilled as Helen. At this time, Simeon notices that Izu suddenly became serious, so he breaks through her defense and raises the sword so that she ends up in a dangerous position. Then he puts the sword aside, considers himself won, and Diana agrees with him, trying to catch her breath, and the hero also leans on his legs from fatigue and admits that he is not used to such physical activity. Suddenly, the girl asks if he did not fight at full strength, and he answers that yes, because this is not a fight to the death. Then she concludes that even at the same time she could not compete with him. The hero immediately shouts that she is doing well. Then she notices that she is called Arena Rose, and he says that she is just doing well. Suddenly, Samia interrupts the conversation. She says that nothing can be done about it, and that in a fight with Aizo, even 100 times she herself could not win. This surprised and embarrassed him a little. The girl asks if even a beastman cannot defeat the hero, and confirms her assumptions, and then Rick adds that he is so strong that he fought with Helen and was not injured. The hero recalls that Helen seemed to hold back next to him, and comes to the conclusion that the priority mode is the minimum for self-defense, because the tension increases. Suddenly, Deanna recalls that Helen calls herself the Lightning Sword, and the hero agrees. Then she asks if you really opposed her, and the hero clarifies that he lasted about 15 minutes. The girl says that it will take a very long time, and tells that the name Lightning Sword was given to Helen for the speed of swordsmanship, which later made her famous among the nobles. Then the hero realizes how strong she is, and cannot understand how he survived. Meanwhile, the girl concludes that he not only forged swords for Helen, but also fought alongside her. She suddenly falls silent, and Izo suggests returning to the house, after which Diana kneels before him, lowers her sword to the ground, and asks the hero to teach her, which shocks him. Then he cast an angry glance at the girls who praised him a lot, and they felt a little embarrassed. The hero realizes that Marius's dear sister, Lady Diana, whom he was entrusted with, has just fallen to her knees before him. Suddenly, he looks at the girl's posture and realizes that Dogajaza is still in this world, after which he agrees to it if she is ready to study at least once after work. He warns her that he did not study fencing well and therefore is not very good at teaching. He says the girl will have to observe and learn in practice, after which she begins to thank him. Then she starts jumping for joy, and the other girls congratulate her, so the hero assumes that the girl was a tomboy at home and begins to sympathize with Marius, thinking that he probably had a hard time. He decided to ask Diana to call him master and not be afraid of him. She agreed. That day the hero got a second student, though not a blacksmith, and one more activity was added to the daily routine. Since then, Diana continued to help in the workshop, and in the evenings the boys began to fight with wooden swords they made themselves for training. The story moves to the courtyard. The girls who helped the hero with work notice that he has started training Diana. He sees that the girl is well trained in swordsmanship and very skillful. Iso believes that this is the best he can do for her. He can help her become better through such competitions. He says that this, like learning blacksmithing, is a way to apply it, because he himself cannot teach the girls anything. So they will be able to build on their own foundation and move forward. The hero begins to become confident that he can be useful to them. The story begins at the moment when Diana is running away from something. The girl tries to escape from someone, but suddenly an arrow stops her, almost hitting her legs. She stops and looks up, seeing Samia sitting on the tree. After some time, the boys return home, and the hero notices it. He was about to greet them on their return when he suddenly got surprised. Nearby, in a joyful mood, he sees tired Diana and asks what happened. She replies that she is very tired. Samia says she asked her to be the one who drives out the game, and the hero understands that Diana had to track down the prey and drive it to the archer. Then Diana herself says that this is completely different from hunting in the capital. Samia happily reports that thanks to this she killed a big deer, and the hero understands that Diana had to run a lot. Then he decides that there will be no training today and allows them to rest. The girl agrees and says that this is the best solution in his condition, after which Etso suggests dealing with the deer tomorrow, which the girls killed together, and Diana says she is looking forward to it, which surprised him a little. The next day the boys went to the forest and decided to start sorting the loot, during which Diana understood how meat is obtained, because until then meat had only been on her plate. However, the hero takes her place because he had thought about the same thing earlier and notices that she is not upset at all, although still young, and suddenly the girl remembers that the deer was alive very recently and she becomes sad. The hero says that this is how the meat they eat gets to them and that this is their life, and the girl notices that he looks like her grandfather. Suddenly Reich asks if this is not a northern way of thinking, but the hero replies that he does not know about other places and explains that at home he was taught that everything has a soul. Samia says it reminds her of werewolves, and Diana suggests that even the forest can have a soul. The hero replies that even the grass in the forest is alive, as are the wind, earth, sun, and even the fire they use. Then he adds that to live with them, one must be grateful, as his grandfather said, and the girl reflects on these words. Iso says that is why, when they eat, they fold their hands as a sign of gratitude for life and the generosity of nature, and also thank the cooks. Diana notices that it resembles a prayer, and the hero agrees with her. Suddenly Samia decides to suggest doing the same as they did in Iso's house, and Reich also supports this idea. Then the girl notices that the hero himself did this from time to time, and he is a bit surprised because it happened automatically. Then he decides to try doing it together, and suggests going home to start preparing lunch. Returning home, the boys cut the meat into pieces and start frying it. Then the hero serves the food on plates, asks if everyone is seated, asks to fold their hands, sits at the table, and the boys fold their hands. The story moves to the house of the Eimer family. Moria sits on a chair and begins to think about his brother Karl, for whom he is very worried. The man thought that his brother would become the head of the family after the funerals of their father and brother, but then they found out that it was impossible, and Carol was furious about this news and barely restrained himself from acting. Marius remembers this and admits that he saw him like this for the first time. Shortly after Carol left home, he opposed the succession to the throne, and after that terrible events began. Marius began to uncover forged documents undermining his reputation and constant attempts on his life, but this did not cause him serious problems because he easily proved his innocence and could stand up for himself. The problem was that he dragged Diana into it, and now he could not allow it to continue its lawlessness, especially after the recent incident. To end this conflict, Marius decides to rely on one person, but he is still tormented by doubt whether that person will manage. After this, the plot returns to the hero again. He cautiously peeks out from behind the bushes and thinks there is no one here. Then he goes down and finds what he was looking for. Several days have passed since Diana arrived. Ezzo went to the city to sell his goods, rewrote Camillo's letter, and explained the situation to him. Then they decided what to do next. As it turned out, Camillo also knew what was happening. He said he hoped not to involve the hero in it. However, he noticed that Diana was entrusted to him, so he automatically becomes involved. Camillo smiles and says that this is indisputable, and the hero recalls that he has been told more than once that he owes Marius, so he decides to do everything possible if Marius needs a good blacksmith because he wants to help. Izo remembers that he said so, and now says that he has already found a secluded place for exchanging letters in the forest near the road, and then contacted Marius and has already received a letter from him. The hero opens the letter and is very surprised by its content, in which Marius asks to prepare everything necessary for work because tomorrow they will go to the capital together. After this, when he returns home, he informs the rest of the guys. Izo says that tomorrow he is going to the capital and 3 girls will stay at home. The Reich asks what to do with the smithy, and the hero asks them to continue working. He remembers that she already knows how to light a fire in the forge, and she says she uses the bellows from the warehouse, so she can manage. Izo adds that they also prepared a lot of food, so the girls would not go hungry, and Samia promises to go hunting if needed, and the hero understands that he can count on the family. Suddenly, the girl apologizes for involving him in this, and he says it's okay because the hero himself owes her brother, so Etzo asks Diana to consider it debt repayment, and she agrees. The hero decides that there is enough news for today because there is still work ahead, and the other girls agree with him. The night passes, a new day begins. The hero hides behind a tree and tries to track someone. When he hears the sound of wheels, he thinks they have come for him and peeks out. They tell him to quickly get into the cart, and Iso rushes to do it. Then the man says he will have to get into the box because the hero must not be seen, and he agrees but begins to doubt if he will fit in there. But when Etzo opens the chest, he sees that it is built into the cart, and therefore there is much more space in it than it seemed. He smiles and says he understands. The man replies that it is an old trade trick. The hero climbs into the chest and sees that it is still cramped there, and when the cart arrives in the city, Izo has already managed to wake up. He concludes that they have already arrived while he was sleeping because it has become noisy outside. Then the hero hears that the previous cart was missed, and he is asked to lead the next one. Izo realizes that they are at the checkpoint to the capital and begins to worry. The guard concludes that the cart is led by a merchant, and the merchant confirms this, saying that he brought goods for sale. Then the guard asks to inspect these things, and the man and the hero freeze in fear of being caught, but he notices nothing suspicious and allows him to pass. After that, the hero breathes a sigh of relief and realizes that they are already far from the checkpoint. He notices that his body has completely gone numb. So thinks that his old body will not be able to get up when suddenly he receives a signal that he can get out, then opens the drawer lid and begins to stretch, saying that his whole body is numb. The merchant says that he understands how hard it was for him. Suddenly, the hero wonders where they are now. He looks around and thinks that this is a forge. Suddenly, someone replies that this is the forge of the Ammer family. The hero turns around in surprise and recognizes Marius. Now he sees him in a different form and is convinced that this man is a true aristocrat. Marius says that here they forge and repair soldiers' weapons. The man takes the cart and leads the horses away. The guys are left alone. Marius notices that they have not seen each other for a long time and agrees with this, recalling that their last meeting was when he forged a short sword for him. Then the man tells them that there is little time, so he speaks briefly. Marius asks the hero to forge him a sword, the best he can make. The hero understands that the guy needs a custom model, decides to agree, and also asks why he needs it. Then Marius says that his family has a sword, a family relic, which was stolen a few days ago. The boy asks if So knows what is happening in the Ammer family now, and he replies that Diana told him. Then Marius concludes that his brother Carol might have stolen the sword, considering what is going on. The hero asks why he needs him, after which the man says that his brother can claim that the one who allowed the family relic to be stolen is not worthy of being the head of the family. Marius believes that Carol will pretend to be gathering information and searching for the sword, and when the time comes, he will say that he has found it, thus proving that he is worthy to become the heir. The hero asks why, and Marius says he doesn't have time to look for the sword, so he suggests pretending that the stolen sword is actually a fake. Then he announces that he wants the hero to forge the sword of the Ammer family. A Upon hearing this news, he asks the boy to slow down and clarifies whether his sword will become a family heirloom. Marius replies that he understood everything correctly. The hero begins to doubt whether he is really satisfied with this. Then the boy remembers that although this sword is called a relic, it was forged neither by elves nor gods. It is just an ordinary sword. He says that when the king recognized their family, he gave them this sword, which, according to rumors, was forged by the best blacksmith of that time, and this makes ISO think. Suddenly, a man returns to the room and says that Helen showed him the sword forged by the hero. He adds that in this world, there are almost no other blacksmiths who could forge anything like it. Therefore, the man concludes that the hero will cope with this. However, he notices that he has never seen this sword, and if he sets to forge it, the sword will turn out completely different from the original. Marius asks him not to worry because they were rarely used, and if they were used, it was only at private ceremonies, and then he notices that the archives also contain only his history, and not a word is said about his appearance. The boy convinces the hero that there will be no problems. The hero agrees and still decides to accept the order, and Marius is happy about this and thanks Aizo. But the hero adds that they can speak informally and asks Marius to address him, as he did then in the city, because he is not used to such treatment. He replies that he must show respect to the one who will save his family, and the hero says that only thanks to him can he conduct business in the city, so this can be considered debt repayment. Mario suggests that they should not be too polite to each other and asks the hero to confirm. ISO reacts positively and agrees, after which the guys make an agreement among themselves. The hero thinks that the blacksmith should talk to the one who will become the count, but realizes that this is better than excessive politeness. After that, Marius still decides to return to the sword. He says that Carol can try to expose their lies, but in that case, they will just need to compare the fake and the real sword. But the man adds that if the hero's sword turns out to be stronger, it will immediately become clear which sword the king gave. A malicious smile appears on his face, and the hero understands what the future count is capable of. The guy reminds me that he already said earlier that their time is very limited. Then he asks the hero if he can start working right now, and ISO answers yes. He changes clothes and decides that it is time to repay the debt to Marius. The hero says that magic is not used in the Amber House smithy, so he will have to light the fire himself. Fortunately, thanks to the knowledge ISO gained through his ability, he knows the basics and will handle it without problems. First, he needs to choose the appropriate piece of iron and forge it on the anvil. After several dozen strikes, the iron should become bright red, then it is placed in barley and bark and set on fire. After some time, the hero puts it on the coals in the furnace. He realizes that here the fur also needs to be rubbed by hand to kindle the fire, and looks at the intermediate result, deciding that so far everything is going well. He usually uses his magical mechanisms and magical furnace. Therefore, he understands that they significantly eased her work. Now the hero has chosen the best piece of iron he got and started working. So far, everything was going well, but a little later, when he started forging again, he noticed that something was wrong, and ISO thinks it is because of a different hammer, so it is worth taking his own. He recalls that this is an individual model and decides to focus better, after which he manages to form the sword, and now he moves on to tempering. Finally, the hero finishes polishing and sharpening and obtains the finished sword, but when ISO looks at it, he notices that the sword somehow differs from his expectations. The action shifts to the workshop, where they are waiting for the master's return. Samia recalls the hero's words when he was about to leave. At that moment, the girl addressed him and asked him to return unharmed. Of course, he agreed with her, and these words remained in Samia's memory. Suddenly, she is distracted by someone's voice saying that the hero is fine. The girl jumps up, turns around, and realizes that it turned out to be true. Then Samia says that she is not worried at all, and Diana immediately notices that this is not surprising because she herself feels unwell and has involved ISO in this. Suddenly, Samia shouts that she is more concerned about Diana and says that she understands how important family is to the girl, although it is difficult and not entirely clear to her. This touches Diana. Next, the story moves to the forge, where the main hero works. He tries to understand why the result is different each time. ISO realizes that he works under different conditions each time, but did not intend to create a unique sword. Suddenly, a man enters the room and notices that the hero has already finished. Seeing that he looks dissatisfied with the sword, he decides to ask what happened and what is wrong. Aizo says that he is not finished yet, turns away, and his interlocutor suddenly says that, in his opinion, everything looks perfect. The hero lays the sword on a pile of several dozen belts and sees that the blade cuts through them effortlessly, after which the man expresses admiration for the sharpness of the product. ISO believes that this sword is no worse than a high-quality model. Suddenly, he approaches the bag and takes something out. The man asks what it is, and the hero replies that he is taking out a knife. Then he tries to cut the same bundle of ropes with the knife and does it easily, which shocks the man, and the hero decides that the matter is different. Camillo tries to express surprise because there was no sound even from the cut, but Iso says that he usually pulls out such sharp objects. The man begins to understand why the hero does not take ordinary orders, since this should not fall into the hands of a dilettante, and decides to try making a sword again. Suddenly Camillo asks about the sword that is already made. The hero says that it can be taken, then adds that he will give a discount, and Camillo realizes that ISO is a real blacksmith. After some time, the hero makes 2 more knives at the level of a homemade model. They also fall short of the quality model, and suddenly he takes them in both hands and wonders why they are different. The hero notices that the knives he makes at home glow brighter, and surprisingly realizes that they do not glow as strongly if he does not put his soul into them. He faces the question of how to get the same light from the materials he has. The hero decides that he still will not succeed. After that, he throws the knife into the fire, heats it, and breaks it into pieces, then wraps all the parts in thin, damp linen cloth and sprinkles them with straw ash. The hero melts everything with fire, and after cooling forges 1 ingot. If there are no materials, he decides to simply use the knife, and believes that by mixing everything in one pit, he will succeed. First he heats, cuts, then folds back, strikes with a hammer and heats again. ISO decides to repeat this 15 times, after which the real work will begin. He strains his strength and sharpens his senses to the limit to deliver precise blows and shape the sword. Striking the metal again and again, the hero notices that the blows are no longer the same as at the beginning. Then he takes the sword, examines it, and realizes that the product is ready. Next, he takes a chisel and applies a pattern to make the sword a relic. Azo recalls that according to Mr. Marius, the relic sword was a sign of honor of the founder of the Eimer family, so this sword is very important for the history of this family. But the hero does not think that the man will like it if his sword is called a fake, because it was not just a sword, and he does not believe he has the right to spoil this item. Therefore, ISO decided to make a new sword that would not be worse than the previous one. He understands that he must be careful to avoid deformation and loss of strength, because the status of their family relic depends on it. When the hero was distracted from work, he suddenly realized that he did not even notice how the night fell, but he managed to finish working on the sword and decorate it. The hero says that he hid the emblem of the sitting fat cat where it would not be visible, then wrapped everything in leather, so he left a small Easter egg. In the end, he decides to rest, because there is no point in continuing today. The most important task the hero has already finished and will deal with the knives tomorrow. The sword is finally ready, and Marius calls it a nice thing, and Iso says that the scabbard took him the whole evening, but he managed to finish it. Suddenly the boy takes a fighting stance and tries to swing the sword. The hero and Camillo watch this with admiration, and then the hero notices that he swings the sword like Diana. Maria says that this is the best sword he has ever held in his hands. The hero replies that his swords are always the best, and that man adds that he cannot just call it a fake. After that, Marius thanks him and asks him to rest until tomorrow, and the hero realizes that he will go home tomorrow. Iso woke up in the morning and began to get ready for the road. Suddenly Marius came to him, for some reason asked him to change into his costume, and took him with him. Marquis Menzel, to whom they came, asks if they want him to give the final decision, because he heard that Lord Carroll returned the stolen sword. Nahiro says that this man is the owner of the estate and a close friend of the previous Count Amer. Suddenly, Carroll reports that he managed to return the relic yesterday near the border. Then Marquis Ansel decides that the matter is closed and says that Marius must become the heir, but Carroll replies that he is not worthy of this because he allowed the relic to be stolen. The hero realizes that what was to be expected has begun, and the man decides that it is reasonable, but suddenly Marius reports that the found sword is fake. Carroll is shocked by this, and Marquis is a bit surprised. Then that man takes out another sword and says that the original is in his hands. Then another man asks him to explain. Maria says that from the documents left by his father, it is clear that the Amor family often uses spare swords for ceremonies and many other needs. Suddenly he hands the scroll to the Marquis and adds that it says the title will go to whoever brings the true sword, then checks that the handwriting belongs to Amur, and the hero marvels that he prepared so well. Suddenly Camillo winked at Etzo, and he understood who else was involved in this matter, while meanwhile Marius says that this document was already found when his brother left. He apologizes for not warning earlier, then the Marquis asks if Carroll, who has long been puzzled, has any objections, and if she says nothing, the man promises to report to the king. Then Carol says she can't believe it's a fake, and the man who barely gave him a chance decides to offer to check. He asks Marquilla if he can go out into the yard, after which the boys go there and stick both swords into the ground. The guard begins to strike the object, but suddenly his spear breaks against it. The Marquis notices that there is not a single scratch on this sword, proving that it is the sword gifted by the king. Carol shouts that this is impossible, after which the man suggests testing his sword for strength now. However, Marius says it is not necessary, takes an already tested sword and strikes it against another sword, shocking the others. The boy says that the sharpness of this sword is unmatched, and the Marquis agrees with him, while Carol at this time overcomes fear and grits his teeth in anger. In this case, the Marquis decides that Marius should take the throne and intends to report this to the king. Then he assumes that both sides do not mind. Carol stands by the broken sword, and the hero notices something strange. Suddenly he shouts and attacks his brother, pulling out a small spare knife. But Marius anticipated this, so he grabbed the tested sword and cut Carol's body in half, and then, considering it unfair, that boy began to cry and died. Marius then apologizes to the Marquis for dirtying his garden, preparing for punishment, but the Marquis replies that the man only killed a liar and a thief and calls him a count. The hero sees this and concludes that Marius is already recognized as a count, and Carol is now considered a fraud and a thief. If the man suggests going back inside because everything is finished here, and the boy follows him, Marius suddenly turns around and looks irritably at the hero, after which Ikko and Camillo also follow them. So Marius received the title of count, but because of Carol's act, his reputation suffered. After that, Marius discussed the next steps with Lord Menzel. They decided not to publicize the death of Curls and his actions, so the Amor family secretly took the body and buried it in the cemetery. The story shifts to a romantic mood. The hero notices that the maid is laughing behind him and asks what happened. The girls notice that he likes their clothes, and he replied that in it he looks like an ordinary city peasant. Then he added that this outfit suits him very well, and the girls agreed with him. The hero enters the room to Marius and Camillo. He notices that in this outfit, he does not look like an aristocrat at all, but they convince him otherwise. After this, the man decides to thank the hero and Camillo for their help and give them a small reward due to the circumstances. The man replies that continuation of cooperation is enough for him. Then Marius asks Iso about the desired reward. Iso says he would like to receive information about rare ores. The boy cites mithril as an example, and the hero agrees with him. Then he asks him to contact Camillo because Marius should have this information. Then the boy recalls something and asks Iso to accept it without questions. At first he refuses, but then he still decides to take it. After some time, he comes out of the state of infatuation and returns to the Black Forest to bring Diana back to the celebration in honor of the new count. Camillo leads Azo to where he needs to go and then goes home through the forest. Holding a torch in his hands, he notices that the house is already starting to be visible. It seems he has been gone for an eternity. He missed his family very much. Meanwhile, 3 girls were already waiting for him on the porch. Everyone greets Iso on his return, then they enter the house together, sit at the table, and the hero tells everything. Diana suddenly becomes upset and remembers that Carol was always kind to everyone and often played with her and others. Tears unexpectedly roll from her eyes, and she sadly thinks about how everything ended. She begins to cry. The other girls try to calm her down, and the hero at this time thinks that he forged a new sword for the Amor family, which took the life of her brother. The girl apologizes for starting to cry, but he asks her not to worry because it is a completely normal reaction. Then he says that Carol's death will be kept secret and asks her not to cry here at all. In response, Diana thanks him, after which the hero says that tomorrow morning he will take her to the estate because he also needs to be at the celebration. Then Rick suggests that he will go for another 2 or 3 days, agrees with her, and apologizes. She says she can wait calmly, unlike Samia. Hearing this, the girls screamed. They start arguing, and Diana stops crying and laughs. Then a calm smile appears on the hero's face. The next day, Izzo goes to the city with the girl and gets off the cart to shake her hand, but she does not like such formalities. Then she notices Marius and hurriedly throws herself into his arms. Suddenly, Camillo says that this time he thoroughly examined the city and saw many representatives of other races. But then he adds that the gates at the entrance to the city indicate that the kings of the past made peace even with giants, and this greatly surprises the hero. He thinks that elves also live in the city, but the man says that they do not leave their village, and suddenly Marius approaches them and apologizes for making them wait. The hero notices that he looks quite tired. Then it turns out that tomorrow there will be an audience with the king and the celebration itself. Entering the building, he realizes that he has nothing to do until tomorrow, when suddenly an employee appears and says that Diana is calling the hero. Iso goes out into the garden and realizes that she has decided to challenge him again, and he decides that this will be the last lesson and therefore agrees to accept the fight. The girl and the hero start fighting. After some time, they get tired and retreat from each other, and suddenly Diana decides to ask him to fight seriously with her at least once. Finally, the hero agrees to this, although he did not expect such a turn. Then the girl takes a fighting stance, and suddenly Iso puts a sword to her throat and wins with it. At first the girl is very surprised, but then she realizes that she didn't even see the attack. Then Iso notices that she is getting stronger every day and convinces her that after long training she will be able to reach the top. After this, Diana begins to rejoice and thank the hero. Her smile warms his soul for a moment. The next day, Marius tells the king everything, and after the celebration, he officially becomes Count Amor. According to the hero, the celebration was wonderful. At one point, Marius proposed a toast to the bright future of the family house, and the guests began to drink to the bottom. At that time, the hero was thinking about the girls he met here and how to prepare several dishes for them, when suddenly Diana approached him and said that the dishes here were excellent. At first, the hero is surprised by her appearance, but then he praises the dress and says that because of this girl, he wants to call her a rose. In response, she asks him not to embarrass her, but he admits that he said it from the bottom of his heart because he probably will not see her like this again. But suddenly several boys ran up to the girl and bombarded her with questions. After that, the hero had no opportunity to continue the conversation with Diana until the end of the celebration. The next day, it was time to say goodbye to everyone. The hero wishes Marius to become a worthy count, and he promises this, but Enzo notices that Diana is nowhere to be seen. And finally, he tells about the true relic. He put it in the cart so that the hero could repair the sword as soon as there was time. He agrees and promises to repair the relic and return it. But that man tells them that they cannot take the sword for themselves and asks the hero to keep it. Suddenly, Marius remembers another thing he wanted to give to Asaizo. After that, everything was loaded into the cart, and the hero and Camillo go to the required place. The man believes that Azo can pass through the forest on his own, and he agrees with him. Suddenly, Camillo reminds him about the luggage, and the hero reaches for the box, which suddenly seems familiar to him. He decides to open the drawer lid immediately, and a familiar girl appears from under it. He recognizes Diana and is very surprised. The girl confirms that it is her, and the hero is even more stunned. It seems that his family will soon have a new addition. The hero asks what the girl forgot here, and she gives him a letter from her brother. It talks about their plan, which succeeded. Azo notices that Diana is also involved, but still decides to continue reading, and Maria says that the circumstances around the girl have changed, so he decided to hand her over to the hero to avoid trouble. Then the hero understands everything and notices in small print a note that anything can be done with the girl if she does not mind, but he decides to pretend he did not read it. He realizes that returning her is not so simple, so he offers her to move to a new house. She starts jumping for joy and immediately agrees. After that, they leave. During the journey, Diana begins to become more difficult, but Iso says that if the girl somehow hindered him, he would send her back. Then he says that he is a clumsy and stubborn blacksmith who cannot lie, and advises her to move on. Diana smiles and turns to Iso. Suddenly, he asks her to switch to informal address because relatives are treated differently. The girl agrees. She calls the hero by name and informs him that she is already home. Then Etzo smiles in response and welcomes Diana back. Then the guys return home, where they are already greeted. Reich, seeing Diana, decides that the plan worked, and the hero at first does not understand why she acts that way. But then the girls started talking, and it turned out that Reich and Samia are also involved. The hero asks what they are talking about, but they answer that it is their girl's secret, and since then a new stage begins in Iso's workshop. Iso's forage accepts Diana into the family, and their daily life is filled with smiles. The next week they spend expanding the house to have more space. When the construction is coming to an end, the boys are happy. Diana says she enjoyed building the room together, and the hero asks if she plans to try it today. The girl agrees and Iso gives her something. When she opens the gift, she is a little surprised. It turns out to be a knife made by the hero. He says that everyone in their family has their own knife, so this can be considered a family tradition. After that, Diana says the thing is very beautiful, and the hero offers to carry her things into the room. Additionally, he mentions that he still needs to buy bed linen, so he decides to go to the city tomorrow. Then the boys quickly have dinner and go to sleep. The The next day they enter Camillo's shop. The man greets them and notices that Diana is with them, which makes the hero feel uncomfortable. Then he notices that there are more people in the store and adds that thanks to Camillo and Marius, he has more work, hinting at Diana's arrival. The man says that he now works with the Count, and therefore their business has started to expand. Then he recalls that the hero was looking for something strange or... Aizo also remembers this, after which he learns that Maria said that Poitkara will soon be in the capital, and this surprises him greatly. He understands that this is a legendary metal that is added only in the north. Camillo offers to keep the Poitkara if he finds it, and the hero, of course, agrees. Then the boys go outside and look for something to eat, and the hero says that while he was away the girls worked and now have something to sell, so Aizo calls them smart girls. Suddenly the girl starts talking about the metal and its search. The hero realizes that such searches are futile. Suddenly he notices adventurers. Many believe that he could work not only as a blacksmith, but also travel if he gained another ability. Suddenly he is distracted by Samia, who assumes that Aizo wants to travel, but he replies that no, because he was born into this world for something else. After that, Samia gets up and leaves, and Reich notices that the hero is always like that. He sees strange looks directed at him, and suddenly Diana says that she gets very worried when he leaves the house, implying that Samia thinks the same. The hero realizes that he has truly disappeared from the past world and says that he will not leave his family, which causes a positive reaction among the girls. The guys return home, and the hero notices that Samia is distracted. She tells me that it will rain for a long time, so ISO decides to get water for tomorrow. A heavy rain began. It hadn't happened for a long time, as Samia said, and since the guys were almost not busy with anything, they prepared metal sheets together. Diana is surprised that they even do this themselves, and suddenly the girls say that they are the strongest here. At first, Diana tries to hold back, but then she starts laughing. The next day it was still raining. The hero decides to ask everyone to make simple models, and he himself decides to make his own knife, which he reforged in the capital. Suddenly the girls start watching ISO intently while he examines the sword, but then he notices that someone is looking at him and turns around. Wright begins to admire his skill, and Diana decides to support her. Then Samia calls the knife a masterpiece, and the hero thanks them for it. Then he says that he couldn't forge a sword in the city, so he remade an old knife into a sword. He concludes that everything here turns out to be of much better quality, because in this forge he is more relaxed and does what he wants, but still decides to find the reason. The rain continued for several more days, and the guys meanwhile forged new items. It seemed that it would last forever, but one day the weather changed. Girls run out into the street, enjoying the sun. Samura says that since the rain has stopped, they should go hunting, and the others agree with her. The hero notices that Samia, as always, is full of energy, and Rake thinks that she is glad he lives with them. Then he says he is glad she is in such a good mood, and Rake replies that the hero does not understand the female heart. The boys go to the smithy. The hero notices that when he works with Reich, the hammer blows sound like music. Then he realizes that the girl thinks the same. After some time, he suggests finishing and going to eat. Reich sits with him at the table, and the hero offers her to go for a walk. Then she thinks that she has been sitting at home all day and hardly goes outside, but this way of life suits her. The hero accepts her answer, and the girl thanks him for his care. After that, they return to the smithy, but ISO quickly decides that enough is enough for today. Suddenly someone knocks on the door and asks if ISO is home. He recognizes the man by his voice and quickly runs to the door. A girl appears before him, who notes that they have not seen each other for a long time, and the hero says he is glad to see her, calling her Helen. The girl enters the smithy, and the hero thinks that something happened to her sword, but she says no and explains that she came to him for an inspection because she is going on a campaign soon. The hero understands everything, so Helen hands him her weapon. He asks if she uses it often. She replies that almost constantly, but the hero notices that the weapon is only slightly damaged. He imagines that she swings them because his swords are hard to damage. The girl says that this sword saved her life and decides to thank ISO for it. But he replies that he does not need thanks because it is his job. Then he tells her that the sword will serve her for a long time, although he still decides to repair it. He is about to start work. Suddenly Helen asks if she can watch the process. The hero replies that he doesn't mind, and she starts jumping for joy. ISO gets to work, and the girls start watching him. He sees that the sword is almost problem-free and only fixes minor scratches. After some time, he gives the sword to the girl to test, and she is pleased with the result. He says the weapon looks like new, but the hero is more surprised that she felt the difference. He asks if the sheaths need repairing, but she replies that she is already too used to them. Then the hero decides to take on the next order. He notices that Helen stayed in his workshop and thinks that she likes watching him work. She says that she often saw her father, a saddler, working. But the girl had to leave home, although she still wanted to watch her father work, and she decided to ask if the hero wanted to know why she left home, but he replied that it is impolite to inquire about a woman's past. But then he decides to listen to this story if there is tasty food, and is already finishing work when suddenly Samyat and Diana return home. They meet Helen, and Diana is a little surprised by such a meeting. She tries to contain her joy because right in front of her now is Helen's sword, the Sword of Thunder. The hero tells the girl to just practice with Diana instead of paying for the job, and Helen is a bit confused. Then she agrees, but ISO asks her not to fight at full strength. The girls go to training, and the hero decides to start honing his skills at this time. Wright promises to take care of them, and they begin to train. After some time, the hero finishes work, and at that moment, Reich informs him that the training is over, and tired Diana and joyful Helen appear at the doorstep. The hero asks about the girl's abilities, and Helen tells him that she has a good foundation, but there are unnecessary movements, and if given time to practice, she will definitely manage. Izo says that this is an honest assessment, and that nothing less could be expected from a combat veteran, and Helen adds that Lena is strong for a man from the palace. Then she asks if he trains Diana, and says that her tricks are very similar to his, and the hero is surprised that she remembers the fighting techniques of the person she once fought. Suddenly, Diana asks if Iso really resisted her for 15 minutes, and he replies that Helen was his first opponent with a pair of weapons, which shocks Diana. Suddenly, the girl decides to challenge him to a fight, but he tries to refuse, reminding me that he is a blacksmith, and notices that it is already dark. The hero offers the girl to stay overnight, promising to take her to the city tomorrow. A new day comes and the guys arrive at the capital. The guard at the entrance recognizes Izo and greets him, then notices Helen. The guy is very surprised that the hero knows her, and looking at his company of a mercenary, a beastman, a gnome, and an aristocrat, asks who he is at all. Iso replies that he is a simple blacksmith. Entering the city, he tells Helen that he is going to the store and decides to say goodbye. The guys go to Camillo's store and bring him new goods, a halberd. The hero wants him to sell it to the count, because it will be more convenient for the guards. The man notices this and says that he has not yet been assigned to Kara, but there is another. He pulls out mithril and shows it to Iso, then says that he wants the hero to also make this rapier, asks for permission to place his symbol in an inconspicuous place, and receives it. The hero agrees and the man relies on him. Iso is glad that he will be able to try something other than steel. Now he is waiting for work with the new material. The incident happened in a small wooden house. The company was in the part of the house where the smithy was. A group of girls carefully watched the further actions of the man. The same man wanted to show them the way to conquer mithril. Izo, in the working clothes of a blacksmith, held a piece of ore in his hand. The gnome had never before seen anyone work with mithril, especially at home, and she hoped that this day would be a real revelation for her. Others also wanted to see how that man would master the mithril ore, and their presence did not interfere with this. Then the black-haired man prepared to start working with mithril. Iso, without hesitation, placed a piece of ore on the hot coal in the furnace to melt the mithril. He knew that this metal was not like others and was processed differently. After that, the blacksmith from another world decided to start forging mithril, heating it slightly less than when working with steel. Iso struck the piece of mithril with a hammer. When he raised his tool, he saw something unexpected for himself. Usually after such a blow, steel would change shape, but the mithril remained as it was, and no marks appeared on it. Therefore, the man continued to strike the piece of mithril. His movements were precise. The gnome watched the work with admiration. Suddenly, the dark-haired man paused for a moment. He was surprised when he realized that mithril was a much more complex and harder metal. Even his famous hammer found it difficult to work this ore, because after a few blows it was already cooling down. However, I was not upset. On the contrary, deep in his soul he was glad. Although he understood that this could cause many problems, he was interested in the conquest of Mithra. Ordinary blacksmiths will find it very difficult to work with the aura of mithril. They do not have the necessary skills and abilities for this. Ezio only smiled at the gnome's remark. When Ezio came to this world, he saw such an unusual material for the first time, but he did not give up and continued to work because he wanted to conquer this metal. Although it was not easy for Iso, he was not going to retreat because he had everything needed, even his cheating power, to succeed. Other girls did not understand how complex this process was. They looked at Iso with admiration. For them, it was like an interesting game. Iso continued to strike. Mithril is easy to work with but cools quickly. So in reality, Iso could only make 2 or 3 strikes at a time. But he had an idea on how to solve this. The black-haired man activated his ability. Instantly, a bright sparkle appeared in his eyes. Thanks to his vision, Iso saw the structure of different materials. He noticed that mithril did not have the irregularities of steel, and this immediately allowed him to focus on elongating the material. This would also help him concentrate and notice the smallest details. This way, he could use his power to conquer mithril. Soft melodic rhythms echoed in the room. Everyone listened to them with admiration. They seemed like real music. The girls were delighted by what they heard, and Iso continued working with OR. Some time passed, the day turned into early evening. The man stopped to wipe sweat from his forehead and noticed that the girls were looking at him. He asked if they were bored because they hadn't taken their eyes off him since lunch, but they replied that everyone was satisfied. At that moment, Azo called Reich and asked to prepare a sharpening stone. The elf gladly agreed and immediately began to follow his instructions, but she was surprised that the man decided to skip the hardening stage. Iso explained to her that this material was already strong enough and did not need hardening. The blacksmith was already holding quite a homogeneous mithril in his hands. He noted with some enthusiasm that materials in another world were of a completely different level. Iso, using his abilities and clever tricks, managed to master the mithril ore. Meanwhile, Reich prepared the sharpening stone for work. Iso, getting down to business, began to polish the material. When he removed all the excess on the machine, he continued working on the fine details on a small wet sharpening stone. Iso was completely focused on the work. His intuition suggested that if he relaxed even a little, all the preparation would fail. Therefore, he could not relax for a moment. The man was fully immersed in polishing the mithril, and the girls watched his amazing work with admiration. Soon the man raised the received mithril sword and informed everyone that the blade was ready and had no defects. The blonde happily approached Iso. She really wanted to try the new sword, and the man, hearing her request, agreed. He warned the girl that although the blade was ready, the sword still needed to have the hilt and other parts attached. Diana understood this, and taking the not yet finished sword, was surprised by its lightness. Iso had heard rumors about weapons made of mithril. Many said it was as light as a bird's wing. This weapon was on a completely different level compared to others. Reich and Diana admired the mithril weapon. The blonde informed everyone that she would test this weapon outside, and Diana was very excited about this. Soon the whole group was outside. They watched the blonde with interest, and Diana took a combat stance, preparing to use the mithril sword. In a moment, the girl swung the mithril sword. Everyone wanted to know Diana's impressions of the mithril weapon. Celia was a little nervous. Lately, she had been frightened by Diana's gaze. She told the others in the group about this. Yuri's and Rake did not understand what the girl was talking about. The girl from the beast race anxiously told them that Diana was looking at her strangely. She did not feel hostility from her, but still felt awkward. Reich also noticed this, but felt differently because Sally is a beast person, and thanks to her abilities, senses any changes in the air. Celia, hearing this, was a little surprised. They take other people's problems too lightly. Suddenly, Diana entered the room. She was curious to hear the reason for Celia's indignation. Celia was frightened by her sudden appearance. Out of fear, she approached Iso, asking for help. However, the man did not change the subject of the conversation. Diana looked inquisitively at the girl of the beast race and smiled, which embarrassed Celia. Celia needed time to explain to Diana the reason for his concern. Diana, hearing what was said about her strange appearance, was confused. She finally understood why Celia was so worried next to her. Understanding Sally's reason for concern, Diana apologized to the girl of the animal race, bowed deeply, and asked for her forgiveness, which surprised Sally. The girl animal did not understand why Diana was apologizing so much, so she anxiously asked the reason for her apologies. Diana blushed even more, looked away to the side, and shyly began to answer Celia's question. It turned out that Diana was staring so intently at Celia because she was very sweet. Celia opened her mouth in surprise, and the others were glad that the cause of the conflict between the girls was so innocent. Diana continued to speak. The girl enthusiastically told Celia that she was very beautiful. She had everything attractive, fluffy ears, and a sharp tail. Diana also liked the fur of the beast-like girl. But Diana understood that touching people without permission was wrong, and knew that Celia was categorically against it, so she watched the girl animal intently, and Celia felt awkward because of Diana's revelation. But soon Celia gave in to her feelings and allowed Diana to touch her animal ears. Diana really liked it. The others also understood her feelings. Oz also wanted to be in Diana's place but held back. Diana makes quick and precise movements with a mithril sword. The blade shines in the sun and gives dazzling reflections. Her movements are smooth and graceful, as if she is dancing with the sword in her hands. Everyone could not take their eyes off her majestic movements. She was a fencing master. Her movements and swordsmanship were familiar to Iso and reminded him of a certain person, so he frowned for a moment and recalled the subdued silhouette of his acquaintance fencer. Iso understood that a weapon is a tool that can destroy life, and its size or type does not matter, because the purpose is one. With his speech, the man forced Diana to come out of the state of merging with the sword. Iso realized that it was much easier to control the lightsaber. Diana was glad that her husband noticed it. Due to the light weight of the weapon, it was easier for her to hold the sword in her hand. Moving with it became much easier and faster. The fencer was satisfied. Suddenly, a blonde girl was called by name. It turned out that Reincarnated brought her a piece of wood so she could try to cut it with a mithril sword. Izu also agreed to this experiment. Then Diana had to prepare to attack the wood. The blonde took a fighting stance. The mithril sword was aimed at the wood. In a moment, the girl swung the mithril sword and easily cut through the wood. This impressed Diana. She was shocked that the weapon entered the trunk so easily. Reincarnated watched the girl's actions, and Diana, stunned by what she saw, drew the sword from its sheath and admired it with enthusiasm because it was incredible for her. Diana was delighted. She didn't even notice how she cut that block. The warrior felt as if she hadn't hit at all, but this only shows that she had become stronger. Then the girl showed Iso the state of the sword after the experiment. The man noticed that the blade was not deformed at all by Diana's actions. There were no chips, and it was perfect for him. However, the dark-haired man wanted to conduct one more test and informed Diana about it. Reich suggested that the girl try to cut through a whole coil of mithril metal with the sword. The girl willingly agreed. In a moment, the blonde again swung the mithril sword. She struck the coil of metal. The sword again easily cut into the material. Diana and Reich were stunned by what they saw. They admired the mithril sword because even after such an attack, the blade was completely undamaged. Iso was also impressed. The stunned man stood silently in thought. He realized that a knife, depending on its purpose, can both help people and harm them. This sword confused Iso. The man looked at it in amazement, realizing that he had created something he had never been able to before. The girls, hearing this, froze and looked anxiously at the gloomy man. The same man continued to stare in shock at the mithril sword he had created. The mirror-like surface of the blade reflected his amazed gaze. Seeing himself, he briefly recalled recent events. He had experienced a lot in this world. However, besides adventures, he saw terrible scenes with ordinary people. Therefore, Iso quietly clenched his sword. He did not feel joy from the sword he created and did not want such a powerful weapon to be sold to everyone. Although Iso did not believe that one such sword could change the world, he had already made other models to order, usually from steel, and therefore understood that a weapon made of a stronger material like mithril in the wrong hands would only bring about the destruction of the world. Mithril weapon does not bend on impact. Its sharpness cuts stone like grass, and with such a weapon in the wielder's hands, nothing will stop them. He realized that this sword might one day decide the fate of the entire world, and it shocked him. He did not even know that his hands could create something like this, but he understood that he must not use his gift lightly, because his creations could change the fate of this world. Iso was in shock. The man went pale when he realized everything. He had to decide who would get the sword. The long silence from the man worried the girls, but it was broken by Salia, a girl of the beast race, who anxiously called Isak. However, he was still lost in thought, and the feeling of creating a mithril sword was different from when the man forged swords for Helen. The black-haired man realized that he had created a family heirloom for the Amur family and thereby interfered with history. Yet despite this, the anxiety did not disappear, and this work caused him a lot of stress. Iso wanted to share his concern with others. Therefore, the man turned to 3 girls. Reich exhaled with relief as her master looked at them again. All the girls waited attentively for the man's next words. Under their watchful gaze, Ozil fell silent again for a moment. The anxiety inside made him quiet, and the man found it hard to share his worries with the girls. But he managed to ask them about the sale of this sword. Iso looked anxiously at the mithril sword he had created. The girls did not answer his question and waited for him to continue speaking. Azo, not hearing them, continued and said that this sword could fall into the hands of evil people and bring disaster to their world. They themselves had already seen the destructive power of this weapon. Izo was very afraid of making a mistake and selling the sword to the wrong person. He was so nervous that cold sweat appeared on his face. He could not even imagine the consequences of his difficult choice. Anxiety was eating him up from the inside, but Izo still managed to tell the girls about the question that troubled him. The girls, hearing the man, fell silent for a moment. and in this silence Iso began to reproach himself for his miserable timidity, since he was already 40 years old, and he blamed himself for shifting problems onto others. Although Isaac understood that by showing this miserable side of his character, he could disappoint the girls and they would leave this house, he could not act otherwise. The man had previously created amazing things, but this sword was on a completely different level. Therefore, Izo expressed his concern to the group. For a moment there was silence, which was soon broken by quiet laughter. Hearing the quiet laughter, the man immediately came to his senses. He was shocked that their reaction was different from his expectations. Instead, the girls just laughed. They were glad that Izo turned out to be an ordinary person like them. The girls were not disappointed in Iso. They understood that it was hard not to think about this problem when creating such incredible products. Iso looked at his companions in surprise. Their reaction shocked him. Reich was a dwarf, so the girl thought that her master Iso would never have thought of such a thing. However, she still understood his feelings, because every blacksmith feels such responsibility. This feeling was instilled in her from childhood, so the girl thought that almost all creators in the world had faced it. The creator is not all-knowing and cannot know who will ultimately get his sword, whether a protector of the weak or a bloody tyrant. After all, the blacksmith is not responsible for the thoughts of his clients. Therefore, Iso should not burden himself with such worries. The man with black hair was surprised by the support of his comrades. He pondered their words. Suddenly, Celia also called Iso. She told him that if heavy thoughts appeared again, he could simply share them with her, since they are family, and the other girls agreed with Celia's words. Isel was pleasantly impressed by their warm support. Words about his family made him blush with shame. The man felt warmth in his soul from the girls' words. They did not let him be sad. Isel awkwardly laughed at their support. Then the man thanked the girls, a little embarrassed for everything, and bowed his head in great gratitude. One tear from the warm feeling fell to the ground. Iso was ashamed that he was so moved by their support and tried to hide his reddened face, and the girls, seeing this, only smiled warmly. Then everyone rushed straight to Iso and hugged him tightly. The man was frightened by the sudden embrace. He saw that the girls were actually not upset because of his pitiful fear. For the first time, he felt good. The tight hugs warmed him, and a grateful smile appeared on his face. Some time passed. Iso clapped his cheeks with his palms and tried to come to his senses. Now he felt much better. The girls were glad that the man had come to his senses. Smiles appeared on their faces. In this world, Iso was a creator. This was his job. Therefore, a person will create what he wants, not only for me but also for my clients, whoever they may be. Now the man was confident in his next actions. After all, he has a family that will support him. Celia noticed that Ezio finally smiled. After the girl's support, he again looked more confident, and he boasted about it to Celia, but she did not agree with him. Everyone began to laugh at this strange situation. Cheerful smiles did not leave their faces, and Iso realized that if his comrades were nearby, he could do anything. He dreamed of a happy future with his family. Then a small group of people entered the house again. Iso told the girls that they would go eat when he finished work. Then he continued working on the weapon. The next day they began the final stage, making the guard and handle for the weapon. Mithril ore is harder to process, so steel was used for this. On the guard, Iso carved a fat cat so that no one would notice. Soon the mithril rapier was finally ready, and everything in it was perfect from the handle to the blade. Iso stared at the finished weapon, trying to find a flaw in the sword, but the sword was flawless. Then the man handed the finished sword to Ritza, so that she, as a representative of the dwarves, could evaluate the weapon he made, and Reich looked at the sword with admiration. Now Iso was ready again to go out into the world without hesitation. Then the man went out and showed the seller the weapon he had made himself. The owner of the weapon shop appreciated his work. So the mithril rapier ended up in Camillo's shop without any problems. Iso learned all the latest news of this world from the seller, and at the same time, he received an order from His Excellency, the Count, to restore the halberd. According to Camillo, there were no movements for war or conquest, but sometimes there were minor clashes with monsters at the borders. Rumor had it that there were disputes among people. The dark-haired man left with the girls. Iso was pulling a wooden cart with things, and a group of girls was guarding him. Diana was ready. She carefully surveyed the area, trying to find someone. Azo, seeing the girl's sudden movements, asked Celia about it. Then the beast girl told him. It turned out that Diana was looking for a wolf cub. The girl had somehow come across it, and lately it had been appearing more and more often in their area. Then they met a she-wolf with wolf cubs, and since then Diana had been like that. The girl was touched by the sight of the cute wolf cubs, so she tried to see them again. Ezio knew that local wolves could be tamed with bait. Celia also knew this, but wanted to hide this information from Diana, because then the blonde would not be pleased. Understanding this, he agreed that it was better for a warrior not to know about it. Meanwhile, Reich tried to warn Diana. After all, she had forgotten about her search for the cubs. Soon the company returned home. Some time passed. Suddenly, an unfamiliar girl approached their house. She took off her hood and sighed nervously. Then the girl quietly knocked on the wooden door. Everyone heard a knock on the door. The man immediately responded to the knock, approached the door, opened it, and was surprised to see a stranger. A girl with elven ears appeared before him. She was beautiful and held a bundle in her hands, nervously looking at Iso. The man was struck by the appearance of the stranger. He noticed her ears, a distinctive feature of elves. Iso realized that she was an elf. The stranger wanted to find out if this house was Iso's forge. The man with black hair answered affirmatively to her question. The elf woman was glad at his answer. After all, she had a request for him. Iso let an unexpected guest into the house. He wanted to talk about everything. The girl agreed and thanked him, and after that Iso treated her to a drink. Wright's cave, or a drink diluted with water. The stranger thanked her for it. Then Iso wanted to find out the reason for the girl's appearance in his house. The blonde elf showed him her bundle. Then she untied the cloth. The man was surprised to find a sword before him, almost broken into pieces. Elfika sadly told them that this was a sword made of mithril. Although it was made from mithril ore, it looked broken. The stranger wanted Ezo to fix it. He accepted the girl's words. He noticed that although the blade of this sword was thin, it was as long as that of a broad sword. Then the man asked the girl about her wishes regarding the repair of this sword. The elf wanted the sword to be fully restored to its original condition, but would agree if that was impossible. Iso was surprised that the girl wanted to fully restore the sword. Then he asked the stranger if she had come alone. She agreed and said that she had used concealment magic on the way. Hearing this, the man was surprised again. But he did not object, and the stranger sighed with relief, because he just wanted to find out if anyone else was with her. The next moment Etzo informed her that he was taking this task. The elf immediately became worried. She was shocked by his words. Because of his loud shout, the man flinched. The girl immediately came to her senses, embarrassedly apologized to him for the raised tone, and he, as if noticing that his client had naively quieted down, asked about the deadlines for this order. It was better for the elf if the order was done faster. He gave them 2 weeks to complete it. Iso agreed to her terms, and she was very happy about it. The man took on restoring the mithril sword for the second time. By that time, the door to the house opened. Iso gladly greeted the girls who were returning. Diana, together with Celia, announced their arrival. Suddenly, she noticed the client in the house. The 2 girls, seeing the elf, were captivated by her incredible beauty. Their eyes were fixed on the blonde elf. Iso explained to them why the elf appeared on their journey, because she came to this house to ask to repair her sword, and the girl introduced herself, bowing, said that her name was Lydie. Diana, in response, introduced herself to the girl, told Lydie that she was Iso's assistant in his forge. Then the girl bowed. Celia was surprised by Diana's sudden politeness and embarrassedly introduced herself to Lydie. Diana, seeing this, was touched by Celia's shy expression. Enrica simultaneously introduced herself as Lady and said that she was a student of Iso. Iso also told the girl that they were his family. Then Lady asked for one more favor. She wanted to see daily how the work on her sword was progressing. Although Lady understood the audacity of her request, it was very important to her. But Iso, seeing that the sword was important to the girl, did not mind this. The blonde elf was grateful to him. She also asked her husband to allow her to take a corner in their garden. The lady could settle there and live while repairing her sword. Isak was surprised by her next request. After all, monsters and fierce beasts roamed that place. Lydie did not understand his excitement. She noticed an extraordinary density of magic here. Therefore, most likely, they will not approach there. Asa was shocked when he heard the girl and looked expressionlessly at the elf. She explained that there was especially much magic near their house, so no trees grew here, and animals did not even come close. The lady thought that this was exactly why Idzo chose the place for the house. He did not know about it at all, and just picked the plot by chance. The elf was surprised by this information because earlier, seeing how Azo struck with the rapier, she was sure that he skillfully used the local magic. Lydia did not understand how he managed to do it. Iso was embarrassed by her words, awkwardly said it was all thanks to intuition, and realized he could not just tell everyone about his ability to deceive. The elf woman also felt uncomfortable because of her thoughts about that man. Iso mentally apologized to her for the lie. Now the man realized that thanks to his ability he has magical power. That is why he feels different in this place. If you believe Liddy's words, that is exactly why Iso could not create the same sword here, because the capital had weak magical power, and he could not reproduce that mithril masterpiece. Then Iso changed the subject of the conversation. He could not leave the girl to sleep outside, so he allowed her to stay in the guest room. The other girls did not object. Liddy was surprised that the man so easily allowed her to stay in his house, as he had 3 wives, and Izzo with a group of girls were shocked by her words about the wives. Then Azo, with a gloomy expression, explained to Lady that this was just his family, not his wives. He realized that these rumors appeared because of Camillo. Lydia felt awkward because of the stupid thing she said. The other girls remained outraged over the recent incident. Isaac sighed with relief. The misunderstanding was cleared up. Suddenly, Diana understood something. She joyfully realized that now they would live together with the elf. Iso explained to her that the elf would stay with them only for the time of the sword repair. She would observe his work. The girls were happy to see the elf in their home. The man awkwardly listened to their applause. Then he informed everyone about dinner. After dinner, he wanted to rest. Celia informed Iso that there would be a large leafy falcon for dinner. Next, Izzo entrusted Diana and Rika to prepare a guest room for Lita. He and Celia were to prepare a bird that had as many as 5 wings. Suddenly, Celia called the man. Then Izu remembered that elves do not eat meat, but these awkward thoughts were interrupted by a blonde elf. She asked them for permission to help with the food preparation. Iso wanted to refuse because elves did not eat meat, but Liddy said that she already knew how to pluck birds in her village. The girl from the beast race was surprised because Sautalia thought that elves only ate vegetables, but it turned out that this was not so. Izo was embarrassed because he thought so too. The lady was not offended. She was used to this stereotype. Usually, elves gathered vegetables or other plants in the forests, and obtaining such products was easier. Iso was a little surprised. Even in another world, there were stereotypes. Liddy agreed that elves ate meat. In their forest, elves mostly hunted deer and birds. But their main food was potatoes. Elves grew them in the fields, and usually no one went fishing with them, but sometimes someone still went. That was logical, so it was pointless to rely only on hunting, especially for large settlements. And after the explanation from the elf woman, the man agreed that she would help prepare the bird. But the lady was pleased with his arrangement. A bright smile lit up her face. After some time, the leafy falcon was completely ready. A delicious aroma filled the table. A sauce and tortillas were also prepared for the dish. The group ate with great enthusiasm. The next day, early in the morning, the company gathered in the forge and thoughtfully looked at the broken sword Leverleguis. The long repair of the mithril sword began, and at first, it had to be assembled like a puzzle. The man was completely focused on his work. Thanks to his abilities, he skillfully controlled the flame temperature. Iso realized that with steel he would only further damage the already broken sword. Also, after joining the material, it would be very difficult to restore the sword's former strength and sharpness. But Iso worked with a mithril sword, so he was not worried. Liddy carefully observed his actions. Although the dark-haired man understood that assembling the pieces of the weapon would be difficult, he still took on the repair because he wanted to try to restore the broken sword. The blacksmith heated the tool needed for the work. Liddy also noticed that Mr. Itzo used magic during the work. The man did not deny this. He knows how to use magic, but it is quite simple. Iso uses it to ignite the flame or cool the fire with wind. Liddy listened carefully to his words. She understood that training was needed for this, so it seemed strange to her that the man hardly knew about the local magical power. A cold smile appeared on her face, and the girl suspected him of lying. Iso felt awkward from her gaze. Her smile frightened him. He could not say that he had just received this power, and his comrades did not know how to use magic. The man avoided the question and got to work. Using blacksmith tongs, he tried to attach the broken part to the main part of the sword. Reich, the apprentice, helped him. The girl, like the man, was completely focused on the work, and then he took a hammer and tried to join them. While Reich held the parts of the sword, Itzo tried to join them. Moderate, precise strikes fell on the place where the blade was joined. Steel was much harder to join than mithril, so Itzo had to cope with it. Azo knew that a special tool could be used, but then it would be harder to control the temperature, and he would not have time to work with the hammer, so he decided to do everything manually. Everyone was focused. The sonorous and melodious hammer strikes echoed through the room. Reich also helped the man repair the sword. Ezan noticed that they had already exceeded the required temperature. Therefore, he immediately informed the lady that during the continuation of the matter, there was an opportunity to finally break the sword, and the elf woman immediately changed her expression, frightened for her weapon. She quickly approached the blacksmith and asked hopefully about repairing her sword. The lady thought for a moment that the sword could not be fixed. Izo was embarrassed by her closeness, but he did not agree with that. It was just that the blacksmith would have a harder time than expected and would need more time. The lady immediately sighed with relief when she heard Itzo's response. Her sword would still be repaired. Itzo, seeing this, smiled. He wanted to test the strength of this weapon, but realized that doing so would only break the sword. Now the man understood that when working with this weapon one must be more careful, and he returned to working with the Reich. During work his eyes brightly flickered with abilities, and Lady noticed it. She realized with admiration that the man truly sees streams of magical energy, and Ezo heard about it for the first time. Lady indicated to him that during work he strikes with a hammer to enter the flow of magical power, and after Iso's explanation, he understood that he was actually trying to prevent the sparkling particles from disintegrating. Let the enthusiast woman approach the man again. After all, he really saw the magical power. Ezo flinched at her sudden approach. The man felt awkward because she was standing too close. The lady noticed this and apologized to Izo, then calmly explained that Izo could see magical power. The blonde was glad she could prove the man's magical abilities because he still saw the magical power, just did not realize it, and understood that all the time during work he saw the light. The light turned out to be a magical force. The man looked at the broken sword. He noticed a flicker of tiny particles in it. Iso also realized that he saw not only magical power, but something else as well. Liddy was glad that they got rid of the intrusive question. Iso thanked her for the explanation. After some time, the man carefully examined Lady's mithril sword because something caused him concern, so Ozo activated his ability, and suddenly his eyes flickered, allowing him to see that the connected parts held well, but something was wrong with the magical energy. Exactly at the junction of the sword parts appeared a huge mark. The man noticed that there were gaps at the sword joints. Even if externally it was perfectly joined, gaps of magical power still remained in the joints. Iso realized that even after restoring the form, this sword was unlikely to last long. The man was tired and had not noticed it before. Eso had to figure out how to fix this problem. The dark-haired man pondered, looking for a way to resolve the situation. Then he called Liddy. Iso showed the blonde his sword exactly at the place of the chip. Lydia also noticed that there were gaps of magical energy at the sword's junction points. Reich still did not see the magical power, and because of this she felt uncomfortable. Celia and Diana understood nothing at all about this matter. They just quietly observed the work like ordinary employees. ISO reported that it does not suit them. The lady also knew about the problem. In this case, restoring the shape of the sword will not help. Perhaps if Idzo strikes the same spots of the sword a few more times with the hammer, he will manage to restore the flow of magic. The lady was stunned by his unexpected proposal. Isa also suggested that the elf simply restore the sword to its original form. The man gave the girl a choice of how to repair the sword. She pondered. She could not answer immediately. It was a very difficult choice for her. Everyone silently awaited her answer. Therefore, Lydia made a decision. She confidently asked to restore not only the original form of her sword, but also the flow of its magical power. The girl still chose the first option. Izo knew that the elf would choose this option. After all, returning only the form of the sword was not enough. Therefore, the lady relied on the human. The most important thing for her was to be able to use this sword as before. The girl was very worried about her weapon. It was her only ideal. Iso understood the girl's situation, smiled, and told Lita that she could rely on him. Reassured by his confident words, the girl calmed down and stopped worrying, and Lita's admiring gaze fell on the man. Then Iso returned to work. To compose himself and recover, he lightly slapped his cheeks. The man realized he had to prepare for a difficult task. After all, he did not want to let Liddy down. He had already promised her to fully repair the sword. He also did not want to ruin the reputation of his forge. Therefore, he became more focused. First, it was necessary to restore the shape of the sword. For this, Iso decided to make a wooden mold by gathering all the fragments of the sword. They returned to work. The broken sword lay on the hot coals. Ricky maintained a certain flame temperature using dry grass. Iso and Rick heated the mithril and made a plate from it. The parts of the sword gradually fused together. Then it was wrapped in straw and heated again, after which the forging continued and melodious strikes echoed throughout the smithy. The man was completely focused on his work. Every strike was precise and had a certain force. Then they joined the pieces of mithril, struck them several times with a hammer, and flipped them again. Then they repeated everything. While the group worked, the sun was setting outside the window. The next morning, everyone was again in the feed room and immediately got to work. Diana and Celia went outside to gather fruits. Suddenly, S.O. stopped for a moment with one strike. He looked at the sword in shock. The man noticed that it had become heavier. Izo called Liddy, and the elf immediately paid attention to him. Then he told her that the sword had gained more magical power, and he felt the sword getting heavier. The blonde elf girl carefully looked at her sword. A second later, she agreed with the man's words. The girl gladly noticed that Iso was very skilled in magic. The man was stunned that the mithril was becoming heavier due to magical power, and shocked by the new information about mithril. After all, with that thin sword he made, he did not feel it that way. Perhaps it is due to the different purity of the metal. In any case, they should have continued the work. Iso had never noticed this before, but it turned out that when he worked with this sword, he put more effort into each swing, and the particles of magical power increased with every strike. The durability of the mithril also grew. Iso started sweating from the intense work. The man noticed that this repair was harder than the others. For this, he needed full concentration and strength. Some time passed. It was already early evening outside, the sky reddened by the rays of the setting sun. The tired man decided to postpone the repair until the next day. To finish this repair, he will need a little more time. The man drank a cool drink after hard work. Suddenly, someone called him. It was Celia who returned home. She told him that she accidentally tore her bag on the way. The girl asked the man to help her gather all the things. Iso agreed to help her. Iso was supposed to help Samia, so he left the smithy cleaning to Rick. Liddy also offered to help the gnome, so as not to be the only one cleaning. After some time, Azo and Samia reached the place she needed in the forest, and then the man noticed Diana quietly searching for something and trying to signal them to be silent, but Azo did not understand what was happening. But Savior understood everything upon seeing this sign. Diana was ready and waiting for something. She looked impatient. Suddenly, someone began to come out from under the bushes. Selly began rummaging through the bag and tried to find something. After a moment, she threw a piece of dried meat. The puppies immediately ran up. One barked upon seeing the piece, and the other began to sniff it. Diana immediately blushed deeply when the puppies appeared. Their cute appearance touched her. A loud cry of emotion almost burst from her lips, while Sally silently and wearily watched the excited girl. Fluffy ears, a wagging tail, and cute dark eyes, the puppies were all very adorable. Even the partner could not deny it. Diana was completely delighted with the puppies, who eagerly ate dried meat. Suddenly, Diana's attention turned to a puppy. He noticed her gaze and barked cutely. The little wolf cub was playing. At that moment, Diana squeezed Iso's hand tightly. He squinted from the sudden pain. He did not understand why Diana gripped his shoulder so firmly. When he saw her delighted face, everything became clear. Diana was thrilled by such extraordinary tenderness. The next moment, the puppy inquisitively tilted its little head, and in the girl's eyes it became even cuter. Diana blushed with emotion. The girl could not contain her joy at such tenderness and, overwhelmed with feelings, lightly tapped the man on the arm. Etzo could only endure Diana's displays of affection and tried to stop her because, probably, his shoulder would hurt afterward, and Celia was already used to such a scene. After some time, the girls returned home together with the man. Iso carried a sack of loot on one shoulder, and that shoulder ached a little after the recent adventure. Suddenly, the man noticed something that surprised him. It turned out that the dark-haired man saw how Reich and Liddy were communicating closely, and the girls were discussing something but stopped to greet them. Liddy was trying to explain to the dwarf how to use magical power. Reich did not understand how she could catch the flow of magic. Liddy said that dwarves find it easier and can create magic with the help of aura. Therefore, while the lady was visiting them, she offered to teach Rick this art. Iso was not against his pupil learning magic. On the contrary, he was glad about this idea. He realized that with his skill in reading, it was unlikely to learn anything. With Reich, everything was completely different. The girl listened attentively and learned new things. Thus, Reich would be able to create a unique weapon and gain confidence to return home. Everyone watched as Liddy taught Rick, and Diana was a little jealous of Rika because such a beautiful elf was teaching her. Then the man remembered something. By that time, it was already late evening. Bright stars twinkled in the dark sky. Iso released some material from his hands. Dizzo, yawning from fatigue, thought about the chosen material and whether it would suit his work. Then the man looked around the room, and there was enough space for his suitcase. After that, Iso began to remove thin wooden shavings. During the activity, he quietly hummed a melody. With quick movements, he carved a piece of wood. Soon morning came. The sun had already risen. The sky brightened. Iso did not go to sleep and was still working. He made a small wooden structure and hung it in the upper corner. There were bowls for water and salt. The man made a Shinto altar. Its shape was a bit strange, but for a former Japanese person it would do. Iso would feel calmer in the workshop, and the man was satisfied with what he had made. However, for a moment he thought about the feelings of the other gods of this world. The man hoped that they would also like his idea. Meanwhile, a group of girls had just woken up. They smiled and went to the wash basin to wash their faces. Celia went to the smithy. There she saw a small man praying. The other girls approached her. They looked curiously at the man. Iso noticed this. The girls wanted to find out what he was doing. When they met, Iso wished them good morning. Then he explained that he was performing a ritual of worship to the gods from his native north. The man half lied to them about this ritual. Diana was glad that Azo could worship God even in such a small hut. Then Iso explained that in his country they believe that any house, even very small, can become a temple where gods and spirits live. The girls were impressed by his words. They were amazed that such a custom exists in the north. Aso informed them that this is usually allowed only in his native lands. Celia asked the man to allow her to try as well. Liddy also wanted to. Aso had nothing against them worshipping his god. Then the man began to explain the rules of prayer to them. The group of girls understood his explanation. They eagerly tried to take the posture for prayer. They were interested in experiencing his practice themselves. So prepared again to pray before the Shinto altar. In fact, he did not know if there was a god in this world, but still began to pray and thank him for everything. The other girls stood next to him in the prayer posture, and Letty chose a more neutral position during the prayer. After the prayer, Ezio hoped that at least one god would appear in this world. Then he called the girls for breakfast. A temple without a master made little sense, but if someone was there, he would help him finish this matter or even help them hunt. Azo hopes that God will help a little. He wanted them to always be full, for his family to always smile. He wanted everything to be well with them. The group gathered again in the forge. A dark-haired man informed the girls that he would continue the work. He assigned duties. Reich was to help with the blade, and Salia and Diana were to work on the wood for the handle. The girls gladly accepted these tasks. Zoe will continue working with mithril for a few days. At least he will try to restore the sword to its original form. Working with mithril, he needs to concentrate well. Nothing will work out if Etzo works without thinking. If he overdoes the force of the strike a little, he can ruin everything. If a person fully understood how magic works, it would be much easier for them. But Aizo would not have become a blacksmith if he relied only on magical power. In this world, few blacksmiths knew how to work with mithril, and the man struck the mithril with a hammer. And although the work was hard, the sound of the strike was beautiful and melodic. Then the man took a short break to rest a little. While drinking water, he asked Lady if she liked watching him work. The usual work of a blacksmith may seem boring, but the work of ISO was quite different, and Lidi really loved it. The man thanked the girl for the compliment. The girl continued to speak. For elves who have lived so many years, time passes much faster. Therefore, the girl does not get bored watching Isak's work. The group of 3 girls was completely delighted by the words of the blonde elf girl. Their admiring gazes were directed at Lynette. Esau understood with discomfort that Lane was indeed much older than she looked. Elves really do live for centuries. Liddy also said that she still liked the sound when Isak worked in the smithy, and that there were no blacksmiths in the elven village who made such beautiful sounds while working. The man was surprised that the sound of work in the smithy differed from other blacksmiths. It turned out that mithril sounds much more pleasant if the blacksmith skillfully uses magic. Reich was surprised by this information. The better the blacksmith knows magic, the more beautiful the metal sounds while working with materials. Lidi praised Iso for his skill. He was a true kind-hearted man. After Leidi's words, the girls were in a bad mood. Thanks to the words of the elf Iska, he was very motivated. He managed to infuse magic into mithril. Therefore, his time and effort were not wasted. He understood that he should not praise himself too much, as it could ruin everything. To ensure all the smithy workers did not lose their fighting spirit, they decided to take a day off and rest. The girls happily spent time outdoors and went fishing. The dark-haired man was glad that his assistants were resting. He sought honest work and knew that rest was important for honest work because, as a former galley employee, he understood the connection between rest and work. Some time passed. Izo is doing his usual task, drawing water from the river with large jugs. He felt a bit better after the recent rest. Suddenly, something unusual caught his attention. He froze for a moment from what he saw and could not look away, his eyes wide open in surprise. Iso saw a blonde elf. The lady lightly placed her palm on the tree trunk. At that moment, magic rose around her, and sparkling particles of magic surrounded her. Then the girl turned her gaze to the man. He awkwardly greeted Liddy. The man asked why she was outside, because it could be dangerous there. Liddy understood this but stayed away from beasts and monsters. Due to the large amount of magical power, there were no animals here yet. Then Asu reported that a monster might appear, but Lady did not consider it possible. The girl was confident in her safety in this place. She did not think that anyone in this forest could turn into a monster. In fact, nature here does not change at all. If monsters suddenly appear, most likely there is a cave nearby inside which magic is frozen. The blonde elf warned the man. Iso understood the girl's words. He realized that probably because of this an aggressive bear appeared then, and then Amizo suggested to Ladidi to create some kind of reserve here, but she herself did not recommend it because emergencies could arise. He agreed with her opinion, but the most important thing is that they will be ready for this. The man lowered his gaze at those. But then he asked why Lady was in the forest, and the girl's face immediately changed. Inzo noticed this and immediately tried to fix the situation by saying that she might not tell him the reason. The blonde fell silent for a moment. She hesitated with her answer, but Lijidati explained to him that she was simply accumulating magical power. The man did not understand why she needed it. Then Letty explained to him that elves, besides food, also need to absorb magical power. Izo understood why there were so few elves in other cities. After Letty's answer, Izo was about to leave the forest. The blonde elf girl was dissatisfied with his reaction. A cold expression appeared on her face. The girl looked at the man, then she called Iso. In a cold voice, she asked him about additional details of absorbing magical power. The girl was wary of the man. Enzo did not need any more questions. He had already heard everything necessary, and Lady had nothing more to say. Then the dark-haired man went into the house, leaving the elf behind. Lady shuddered at Izo's words. She felt warmth in her soul from the fact that he did not learn the truth. Time passed since that scene. Everyone was already in the forge. Iso reported that they would have to work hard again. No one was against it. The man managed to bring the mithril to the required size. Thanks to the wooden mold, they managed to restore the sword's original appearance. Finally, the last stage of their work came. Iso took the blacksmith's hammer again to complete the repair of the lady's sword. During work, the man caught the lady's attention with his question. He asked how her sword broke. The girl immediately paled from memories of the past. She could not say a word in response. Iso did not push the girl. He was simply curious about what could break such a material. The man would like to forge a sword that would not break in such situations. Then Liddy began to tell. The magic was behind the breakage of her sword, so she cannot tell all the details. To master a mithril weapon, you need to infuse it with your magical power. The man, hearing about this method, was stunned. Lee continued her story. In her village, her sword was highly valued, but something happened to it. There was too much magic, and the sword shattered. The elf lowered her head at these words. Therefore, she needs a blacksmith who will restore the sword and make it at least no worse than the original. Azer realized that he would have to increase the reserve of magical power he can hold. Then the man thanked Lady for explaining the cause of the weapon's malfunction. After a sincere conversation, Izo took up repairing it again. A lot of time passed. The man was still fixing the sword, with about 2 weeks left until the required deadline, so he worked diligently. The girls carefully watched his actions. Iso used his skills during the repair to achieve the best result. Eventually, the mithril sword was finally ready. The tired man looked at the sword he had repaired with satisfaction. Everyone was glad that the repair was successful. Then Izo called Liddy. He handed her the sword so she could inspect it. The elf nervously approached the sword. She looked at the weapon that Eyes had repaired. Another girl carefully watched the elf, waiting for her reaction. After a moment, Lady smiled happily. She was completely satisfied with Izo's work. The blonde thanked everyone. Izo made this sword much better than she herself wanted. The three joyfully exclaimed because they managed to fulfill the elf's request. The man was stunned that he did the job better than was needed. Izo frowned. He thought that he had overdone it when restoring the sword. The man with black hair was already thinking about redoing this sword. Liddy, noticing the blacksmith's concern, only gently smiled and said that the sword he restored would have greater magical power than the original, and the blacksmith helped her a lot with this. Iso sighed with relief. He was glad that the girl liked everything. Suddenly, Lady started talking about payment for the work. Now Lady began to worry. She was not sure that such an amount corresponded to Iso's work. But he did not think so. Liddy smiled warmly. She felt cozy because of his simplicity. Then the girl stretched out her palms with the contents. The elf wanted to pay the blacksmith with 5 gold coins and pieces of wood. Liddy was puzzled. After all, Iso had done much more than she expected. She would have liked to pay him more, but at that moment she only had this. Isa clumsily tried to calculate the price. The girl herself brought all the necessary materials. Suddenly he had an idea. He returned a gold coin to her. Lady took it, but there was a surprised expression on her face. Iso also entrusted the elf girl to bring him vegetable seeds from her village for that gold coin, and if it was not difficult for her, then when she received the seeds, she would have to give them to Camillo. Lady was surprised by the man's request. Even less than half a gold coin was enough to pay for the places, but the man did not take it back. He said that this coin would be the payment for training for him and Ricky. The blonde elf was impressed by Iso's kindness. She bowed and thanked him for his kind words. The man only smiled warmly in response. After that, Liddy had to leave their house. A group of girls together with Asa came to say goodbye to her. The elf who held a bunch of swords in her hands also thanked everyone. Liddy never thought that blacksmithing could be so interesting. and was grateful to them for this experience. She said with a bright smile that she really enjoyed spending time with him. The girls also smiled widely in response. They were glad that the guest was satisfied. Then the group of girls approached to say goodbye to Liddy and demanded that she promise to teach them fencing and elven magic. The girl, hearing their words, realized that she could come here not only with an order. Iso agreed with this, smiled, said goodbye to her, and asked her to promise that she would tell everyone about their wonderful forge. After restoring the elven rapier in Iso's forge, the company returned to their usual measured life. After some time, Iso was again in Camillo's shop, and the shop owner said that he was fine. Azo, arriving in the city, heard interesting rumors about some thieves and wanted to find out the details of these rumors from Camillo. It turned out that a thief broke into someone else's home, but the victims only received minor bruises. He took nothing and left them alive, and people did not remember either his voice or face. Azo, hearing this, considered the situation strange. At first Diana suspected Carol, but this did not seem like her actions. But if Carol had such experienced people, he would have hired them earlier. Iso agreed with the girls' words. Camillo thought the same. Although Azo's house with the girls had not yet suffered, they would still be careful. The girls sat in the office quietly drinking tea. Suddenly Camillo remembered something. The shopkeeper informed Azo that he had a creature resembling a horse, and when Azo heard about the horse, he recalled the image of that animal. They could use another horse, because soon the period of heavy transportation would begin. Then Camillo showed the company the way to the creature. Iso and the three girls froze in shock upon seeing the creature Camillo spoke of. If the others were just surprised, Iso was stunned, because the creature Camillo showed was not at all like a horse. The creature saw them and purred sweetly. Camillo explained that it was actually not a horse, and before them appeared a running dragon. Although it was not really a dragon, the running dragon belonged to the lizards, and he and Diana could not take their eyes off it, because the creature looked very cute. The running dragon inquisitively turned its head, and such a gentle gesture moved Diana even more. Blushing, the girl shyly began to push the man in the shoulder, and Iso realized that the girl definitely liked the dragon. While Diana was still lively patting it on the shoulder, he asked Camillo about the running dragon's diet. The seller said that the animal was omnivorous. It ate vegetables, meat, grain, and even grass. It was undemanding. Iso, hearing this, understood everything. He had no problems at home with either meat or grass. Then the man asked how many times the running dragon ate. Camillo replied that they did not eat much. For example, this running dragon practically ate nothing from him. Diana looked at the cute little animal with admiration. Iso also tried to find out why the man did not want to keep this running dragon. Then Camillo explained to him that the running dragon would stand out a lot in his stable. He would stand out too much among the horses. Iso understood this. Then he turned his attention to the dragon. Diana nervously awaited the man's decision regarding the running dragon. Iso, seeing this, agreed to take the beast. Camillo smiled broadly in response. The shop owner also noted that the price for the running dragon was very high. But the dark-haired man was not worried about it. He said he would pay for the running dragon next time. Camillo did not object. Then he decided to prepare the bride and everything else. Then the man stepped away from the company to bring things for the running dragon. A soft melody came from his lips. Iso smiled, looking at him. Diana wanted to pet the dragon, and the blacksmith did not object, because soon he would become their new family member. The blonde gently touched the skin of the running dragon. The dragon did not resist her touch at all. The girl, placing her palm fully on the dragon, felt the warmth of its body with admiration. Diana was delighted by this. At that moment, the running dragon felt comfortable. He relaxed and allowed the girl to touch the lower part of his head. Then the dragon Milo, who was running, purred. His voice sounded joyful. The new member of their family felt comfortable. Diana blushed again at his gesture. The other girls also wanted to pet the cute little dragon, approached him and gently petted him, and that day they gained a new cute and reliable family member. After some time, a group of people sat in a wooden cart with belongings. It was already being pulled by their dragon, which was running, and Rick sat in front and steered it. Iso asked Rick about the running dragon. This dragon was good at pulling the cart. Their new family member also rode fast, but again barely rocked the cart. The running dragon relaxed and easily pulled the cart towards itself. Iso appreciated this too. When he returned, he wanted to train their new pet. Suddenly, the cart hit a stone and bounced, causing everyone to sway immediately. Iso said that the new family member needed training, because during the ride, he sometimes sped up too much. Diana understood that the man was comparing this trip to the time when he had to hide in Camillo's carriage. Celia was worried that the cart might not withstand heavier things. They would definitely have to work on the load capacity. Soon they reached the forest. Their journey took half as long as if they had walked home on foot. This pleased them a little. The running dragon was not tired at all during the whole way. Iso noticed that in the forest he felt calmer and more comfortable. However, the man did not lose vigilance regarding their new favorite. Suddenly, unexpectedly for everyone, the cart drove onto a thick branch. The running dragon did not stop and continued on its way, so the cart lifted for a moment along with the passengers. Then everyone fell back down. Reich apologized to them guiltily and explained that they had simply hit a thick branch. No one was hurt. However, Izo decided to definitely improve the cart's suspension because during this trip it was uncomfortable for him. The running dragon only growled at them. After some time, they found themselves at home. Everyone noticed that the trip home took less time than before. The sun was still high. Everyone was satisfied. The way back now took less time, so they had more free time for various things. The dark-haired man brought a bucket of water to wipe the dragon after the ride. Iso thanked the pet for taking them. Then the man began wiping the body of the running dragon with a rag. After that, he wanted to bring meat to Tom. The dragon felt joy from Iso's attention and rubbed its muzzle against the man. Ursu understood that although the running dragon could eat grass, sometimes it thought about spoiling it. Soon Diana approached them with a tray of meat. The blonde wanted to name their new favorite. Reich initially wanted to find out the sex of the running dragon, but they did not know how to determine the sex of such dragons, so they stopped there. Isa wanted to hear others' ideas about the name. Diana told everyone that she heard some aristocrat in the third race name his horse, and they were surprised because the name was hard to remember the first time. Then Diana asked Iso for an idea, but he did not try to come up with a name for the running dragon because the names he invented would also be complicated. At that moment, Celia had an idea. During the meeting with the running dragon, she noticed that it was constantly purring, so the girl from the animal race suggested calling him Urchik. Everyone appreciated Celia's idea. She suggested a cute name that suited their new family member very well. Iso agreed with Sally's idea. The name was easy to remember. From then on, the running dragon was called Urchik. Diana congratulated him on the new name. The dragon, as if understanding them, purred happily. After they chose a name for their running dragon, everyone gathered to rest and went about their business. Iso decided to make a small house for their new favorite the next day. The next day, Iso, stretching and still sleepy, went out for water and took jars for collecting, but something else caught his attention. The man saw the running dragon lying in front of him. The dragon looked at Iso. Then Iso greeted him and asked if he wanted to go with him for water. The running dragon grumbled in agreement. The man was surprised, but returned to the house to give the dragon a bucket. Ursu tied a bucket to a rope to hang it around the running dragon's neck. The rope did not press on the dragon. It was comfortable for him to carry the bucket. The dark-haired man gently stroked his pet. He himself offered his head for affection. Then they went together to the river. Urchik was a very strong and hardworking dragon. The man realized that Urchik could be relied upon. The trip for water went perfectly. For a dragon that runs, it is very important to walk more and warm up. On this day, everyone worked on building a house for Urchik. Fortunately, they gathered a lot of firewood. They only had to transport the logs. Now they had an earthly chicken, so transporting firewood was not a big problem for them, and the dragon that ran helped them a lot. Diana was worried about the running dragon. The girl thought that Tom had too hard a time carrying so much firewood. She looked at Urchik with anxiety and admiration. Others were calm about the situation. Urchik not only transported firewood, but also helped them pull branches. Together, and thanks to Urchik, the work on building the house went very quickly, and the new home for the running dragon was ready in 2 days. Everyone was happy that they had made a home for their pet. I tried to explain to the dragon that was running that from now on he would live in the little house. Urchik carefully examined his new home. Now he could hide from the rain and did not have to sleep under the open sky. The blonde thought that having a home was wonderful. The running dragon also agreed with her. He gladly lay down on the soft hay prepared for him as a couch. Diana was touched by his relaxed appearance. She began to pet the favorite, smiling. Everyone else watched this scene. Where I appreciated the intelligence of their dragon that was running. He was a very intelligent dragon. It seemed to her that he understood them. Izo shared the same opinion. The man was glad that they managed to settle Urchik so quickly. Salia appreciated Izo's efforts. He tried very hard. The girl noticed that Izo was cool because he knew so much. The man froze for a moment at their words. He still has knowledge from a past life, so he uses techniques and technologies that do not yet exist in this world, and thanks to these skills, he performs his work better than others. However, the man also understood that he should not act outside the rules of this world. Iso must at least adapt his inventions from his native world to this one. After some time, they returned to the river for water. the man went there again with the boy. The running dragon helped him with the water. Next, according to the plan, Esau was to improve the cart. But it was necessary to protect not only his family, but also his lower back. Then the man informed everyone that now they must focus on improving the cart, and when they manage that, everyone will return to their usual work. The man also told Rick that she would have to work with metal. She was not worried, but Iso still felt guilty because he thought it would be better for him to take on this task. The dwarfess tried to calm the man. She wanted him to rely on her. After all, Rick should at least fulfill her duty as a student. Iso thanked the girl for her support. Next, he began working with everyone to improve the carriage. To reduce shaking during the ride, he would have to make a suspension. With the resources that were in Iso, he could do it. Then the man boiled water and immersed the material to heat it and make it flexible. Next, he fastened various rods with nails. Then Iso assembled the front and rear wheels. The man also installed springs on the rear wheels and made a cart with wooden wheels as a prototype. After creating the prototype, Iso breathed a sigh of relief. At that moment, Urchik approached him. The fast dragon wanted to test the prototype cart's movement. The man was happy to allow him to do so. Putting a bridle on the boy, Iso began to watch the cart. For the experiment, he placed a bucket of water on the cart. The boy set off, and fortunately, the water did not spill from the bucket. Thanks to the help of Urchiks, they chose the best prototype among the carts, and only proper assembly and giving the suspension the right shape remained. Even having ISO knowledge from the old world, they had to work hard. Sweat from this labor dripped from the man's face. He rested a little. The man thought that people are truly amazing, because people created these things from scratch, without using knowledge from a previous life. People have always tried to make their difficult lives easier, and in this world, it is also inevitable. It's just that IZO ended up in this world. The steel he used is no worse than that which ISO applies for fulfilling the order. Blacksmithing is a very complex, almost jewelry-like craft, and even seemingly minor problems often have to be solved by trial and error. The man was building a cart. At some point, he was already attaching boards to the base. Urchik was watching him carefully. Fortunately, Izo had strength that made the work easier. People achieve such results after decades of work, sometimes even after 20 years, but Iso worried that he would not be able to call this skill his own. It was too hard for him to think about this topic, so he did not want to think about it anymore. Suddenly, someone called him. Celia invited her husband to lunch and prepared food for them. The husband heard about lunch and stopped working on the cart. Then together with the girls, he had a snack. During lunch, ISO informed everyone that in a few days he would finish completing the wagon and return to his usual work. He also did not forget to thank Reich for taking on his assignment. The man thanked the others for their help around the house. Reich was glad of his praise and said she had time to practice magic management. The girl was very pleased to discover the magical power. Iso was glad that she did not get tired of work. Celia also noticed that Reich has been making very beautiful knives lately. Diana thought so too. Reich was embarrassed by their words. She thanked the girls, blushing. The man saw how the girl was very happy with such a compliment. He and Reich entered the smithy, where the man carefully examined the knives that the girl had made. ISO, using his ability, studied Reich's work. Although the knives reminded him of those he had seen before, they had a noticeably new level of craftsmanship. The man highly appreciated the work of his student. He told her that it was simply wonderful work. However, Reich did not think so. The girl knew that she still had a lot to learn. Reich wanted to create the perfect weapon model. Izo just looked at the girl with a smile and encouraged her, saying that she would manage. Reich immediately rejoiced at his words. She was delighted. The time came and the improved carriage was ready. ISO showed the girl hers and invited them to sit in the carriage. Urchik was already ready. The girls, approaching the carriage, appreciated its appearance. The seats were not only beautiful, but also pleasant to the touch. Reich noticed that Izo did not forget to make a separate place for the coachman. When everyone sat down, the man took the driver's seat and gave Erichik the command to move. The dragon obeyed the command and ran. The carriage rolled calmly along the road. The girls felt comfortable next to the man. Reich, Celia, and Diana were surprised. The carriage hardly swayed, and it did not hurt them to sit as before. It was a real relief. Then the dark-haired man explained to them that he had put springs on the wheels. Thanks to this, the carriage hardly shakes. Now the company would not have to worry about luggage and could travel faster. The girls were impressed by ISO's work. Then for a minute they rode silently in the carriage. Everyone enjoyed the comfort of the trip. After all, now there was no need to be afraid of flying off the carriage. Diana relaxed. The wind pleasantly blew in their faces. The dragon, running and purring, moved calmly along the designated path. Now that transportation would be faster. Even alone, it would be possible to transport more goods. Information about them would spread faster. Etzo realized that this would affect not only their lives. When Isya entered this world, he was told that his existence would have little impact on this world, but now he sees with his own eyes how his knowledge changes it, and just one careless step aside could change everything. The man thought about how his existence affects this world. Celia praised Urchik, he was a good boy. Urchik understood the praise and purred contentedly. Their journey continued, they walked towards a new day. During the conversation with Camillo, the man checked the received amount. Azo was a little embarrassed because the seller gave him a running dragon at a price below market value, but he was not against it. Camillo explained to Aso that one of the empire's nobles had run out of money and was selling the running dragon cheaply, and Camillo sold it to Aso a little more expensive, so he made a profit. Azo understood that Camillo was talking about the empire, their neighboring country. Then the man evaluated the running dragon. He was a smart, strong, and reliable assistant. It was also a way for the company to get to the city faster than usual. Camillo was glad to hear this, but in fact, the seller wanted to talk about something else. He wanted to ask Aizo about the improved cart that he had recently created. Enzo realized that he had already seen this pendant. He was sure he would notice it. It was time to explain how the map works. Meanwhile, the girls were drinking tea. After the explanation, the surprised Camillo understood that thanks to the pendant, the cart shook less, and this allowed goods to be transported faster. But the pendant had its limits, so it was not worth overloading the cart too much. Camilla listened to the man's explanation, and at the same time, Izo informed Tom that he could make another one like that. Camillo froze for a moment upon hearing the words. His mouth was open. Then the man came to his senses and, embarrassed, asked Izo what he said, and Izo added that maybe he wouldn't have to pay for the cart. Camillo tried to calm down. The shopkeeper's conscience did not allow him to give away such a cart just like that, so he left the office to get something, and from the corridor came his voice calling someone. Azo calmly waited for Camillo. While Camillo was away, Celia noticed that many new people had appeared in the city. Esau understood the reason for this. According to Camillo, Marius had recently been busy developing this city, although Tom often had to fight demons at the border. Recently, bandits have started to trouble the roads. ISO heard rumors that they have not been caught yet. After talking with Camel, the company went to the market for groceries. After that, they set off again on the road home. The trip was quiet. Reich was glad that they managed to settle matters in the city while the sun was still high. Suddenly, everyone felt something. An unfamiliar person appeared on their horizon. A girl in a raincoat with a hood hiding her face stopped their carriage and warned that if they did not stop, something bad would happen to them. Iso only ordered Erichik to stop. The man realized that a bandit, about whom rumors were circulating, had appeared before them. The unknown hooded person held a weapon and ordered them not to make sudden movements. He whispered to his comrades not to relax. Then the man began to survey the nearby surroundings, trying not to turn his head sharply. However, it was not visible that this bandit had accomplices, although it could not be ruled out that these were the same bandits rumored about in the city. Diana was surprised that this robber had not been caught yet. Iso thought the same. The gang did not understand what the robber who stopped them wanted. Suddenly, the unknown robber woman sharply pressed the tip of her sword to the running dragon. He looked at her, not understanding. Diana immediately got up from her seat. The angry girl wanted to draw her sword from its sheath, but her comrade's shout stopped her. Seeing this, the bandit ordered them to hand over their weapons. Everyone immediately tensed up. Diana was still angry about the bandit's recent action. The man activated his ability, his eyes lit up, and through them, he saw the opponent's strength. She was a little stronger than Diana, but not as powerful as Helen. Sadia was also with them, so the advantage was on their side. Suddenly, Wright touched the man and drew his attention to herself. The girl ordered him to throw her knife at the bandit. Eitsu accepted the task without trying to find out the reason for this idea. The man threw the pistol at the bandit's feet. She silently picked it up, but something about the weapon struck her. The man tensed and waited for her next move. The girl, having uncovered her face, asked where they got this weapon. A pattern was painted on her face. Hearing the bandit's question, everyone froze for a moment. They almost laughed, but everyone tried to hold back. The bandits looked at them questioningly. She constantly questioned them about the weapon. Isaac replied that he had not hidden it anywhere because he made it himself. The bandit was stunned by his answer. Iso continued to speak. They were walking home, so if she was interested in their goods, she needed to hide the sword. The unknown woman obeyed him and hid the weapon. Then the man invited the girl to sit with them in the carriage. The robber was shocked by the suddenness of events, but the man could not wait for her long. After a short pause, the girl still got into the carriage. She said that she was looking for a weapon with such an emblem, but as Iso said earlier, he made such weapons himself. The girls noticed this emblem on their swords. The female robber asked the man to make her a weapon. Iso did not consider the girl to be that bad, but the wary looks of others made him hesitate a little. The man sighed deeply. He said he would agree to do it, but on one condition. The girl must come to his forge in the Black Forest by herself. The man explained to her how to get there. The bandit was to come there the next day.